favor. This is one more, please. Hello, and welcome to episodio número 29 of Otra, por favor. How are you guys today?
Doing great, man.
Good.
Happy to be here.
I know, man. It feels like weird because Chaparro's not here.
I know. It's like a part of my soul is missing right now.
Yeah,
Like
part of something is missing.
The little pinky in my foot is missing right now.
Is it because of the size of his size or
No,
why?
because he has that special touch, the
that.
tres dedos.
Well, you seen his toe? Con ese el que tiene
That's a magical secret,
el
man.
callo.
Not everyone can know about that, but that's where he gets all his hot sauce from.
I know, dude. And I always give him crap, but that's how he get us,
Yeah. Well, we're missing out on Chaparro, but we have a very, very special guest with us today, Pepe Rangel. Welcome to the Otra por favor podcast, episode 29. It's an honor to have you here, sir.
Yeah, no. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here, and I'm a little sad that I didn't get to meet the third host.
Yeah,
but you'll have another chance to meet.
Le llamo si quieren, a ver si contesta el vato.
We might have to FaceTime him real quick.
Hey, ¿cómo andas, güey? But yeah, man.
Just to give a little interview on Pepe, a little introduction to Pepe. He's a program coordinator for Verde Leaders. He's going to talk to us today about his a little bit about his background, his upbringing, his soccer life in the world of soccer, and kind of his transitioning into that community organization known as Verde Leaders for ATX Foundation. So we're happy to have you here, man. First and foremost, how you doing? What's good?
Yeah, no. Again, thank you so much for having me, and doing well. Getting ready for the holidays. I know there's going to be a lot of trying to hit the gym, trying to run a little bit right now before getting that extra. Yeah. I want to feel a little bit better about myself come the next few weeks. So, yeah. What about you guys?
Don't we all?
It's always working to get that reward that is going to make you feel like crap. We're going to stuff our faces. We're going to drink so much, have a good time with the family, but important times, man. Important times. I feel like this is the time of year where there's so many things happening, and you want to do so much, but really there's only so many days left.
And we only have about 7 weeks left in the calendar, right?
So November, late November already, man.
Sheesh.
Yeah, man.
Sheesh, man.
So Pepe, it's the first time meeting you. It's an honor to meet you. I really didn't know you, but Coque had talked about you and what you guys do with ATX Foundation. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And it was pretty cool because actually Coque bringing that up, it was kind of like open up the opportunity for him to be, the third mic on the podcast. And from the beginning, he started, coming up with ideas of, for the conversation for today. He's been preparing it for a good while.
Yeah.
So, man, hopefully, you enjoy this time. And I'm pretty sure the listeners are going to enjoy hearing about the organization, hearing about you especially. I mean, how everything came about. And, man, it's an honor to, for having you here. And also the fact that you also connect with people that we've had in the past. That also brings a little bit more of a, I would say, like a closeness, because you've been with Michelle in a podcast before.
Yeah.
And you're friends with Sonny. Sonny, ¿qué onda, vato?
Shout out.
Yeah, man. So, dale, Coque, a ver, what you got?
Really, I just wanted to get into the life of Pepe Rangel. The floor is yours, man. Give us a little bit about your background, kind of what got you here, early life, whatever you want to get into, man.
Yeah. Well, man, where do I start? Originally from California, so grew up in Northern California, a small town called Chico. It's like an hour outside of Sacramento. Grew up, in a Mexican household with two older sisters, my family, and my grandma and uncles and aunts. And so at a very young age, just very family oriented, and always watching sports on at night after school and also on weekends. And so I think that's where, my love for soccer and just in sports in general, just started. And so, soccer has just been always part of my life. And so been super lucky to just be able to still to this day work with soccer. I think all of us, at one point we all wanted to play professional soccer. And those dreams quickly, it's very difficult. And so after that, you just think about other ways that you can stay in the game and just be involved. And so lucky enough and blessed enough to be able to continue to work with kids that one time, like I could see myself in their shoes, right? And so being able to, go to work and just appreciate and see these kids just smile and just because they play soccer. And so, so that's how I got them. I guess I'm moving forward too quickly, but I moved to Austin when I was 14. And so big transition from California. I used to ride my bike to school, beautiful weather and just very different. And so I was able, when I moved here, it was like I went to school in Del Valley High School, which is right near the Austin airport. Everything's 30 minutes away. And so it was very difficult, a little bit of a hard transition. But again, luckily enough, because of soccer, I was able to make friends pretty quickly and just be able to adapt to the community here and just be able to, now I feel like it's home to me, even though went away for school for a few years, but been in Austin since 2016. And so love my time here. And, now that we have Austin FC, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about, just super happy to be in this city and be able to talk to people like you guys and just be able to talk about the community and talk about soccer as well.
Right on.
Dude, that's like soccer. I think that's a never-ending topic,
I know.
Like especially since we didn't play professionally, but we grew up playing it and then watching it. Like there's just that special feeling because I feel sometimes with players we can understand whenever they're not doing well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's like sometimes you're like, oh man, like it's difficult because I've been, whether you're getting criticized or you're criticizing, you're like, man, like. Are we being too tough? But it's also like, I feel like there has to be that expectation from the fans, right? And from the people to be like, okay, like this matters. That just shows that it matters to us, right? If we're, tranquilos and everything, like, okay, like I think it just doesn't, that the culture isn't what I feel like Austin is bringing now. So,
yeah, at the end of the day, the passion for soccer comes from a place of love. And sometimes love isn't always roses, sometimes it's tough.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting to hear you say that your transition from California to Texas, you were able to make friends and build that community through football. And that's one of the beautiful things that soccer has given Richie and I think many of our listeners. It's given us that community and those friends, those lifelong friends and mentors that have continued to help us through difficult moments and they're there for us during moments that are great for us, accomplishments. But at the end of the day, they're your family. They're your family away from your family. So it's cool to hear you describe some of those early friendships. Talk to us a little bit about some of the mentors in your life that have kind of given you support and given you certain values that you've learned from.
Yeah, I think to start with my dad, right? Like I mentioned, so my parents were both born in Michoacan. And my dad moved to California when he was 14 and started working day one, right? So it's crazy to think now, him being 55, 56, something like that, that over 40 years of working every day, and I've never heard him like complain. He has back pains, this and that, and he's still showing up to work. And I think sometimes, myself, like on a Monday, sometimes I'm like, man, like I already had my coffee and I'm still like, I'm ready to go home. And it's like, man, like my dad has been, selfless
going
and he's
at it.
Just who he is, he's never complaining. So it makes me, I always try to remind myself like, all right, my dad, like the grind, but also just providing for others and putting others in front of him, which sometimes I tell him he has to be a little bit more selfish, but, I just think he, his biggest heart. And so just growing up, he actually was a basketball player, which is kind of, people always ask me, oh, like, who introduced you to soccer? He played basketball. He's like I guess for a Mexican, he's like 6'3" and was pretty tall, right? So
6'3"?
Yeah, 6'3". Yeah. And so
where's your dad originally from?
They're both from Michoacan.
From Michoacan?
Yeah, like it's a pueblo called San Antonio Carupo. It's like,
is it typical for people to be 6 and over there?
Oh, no. You go, every time we go back, it's like, man, they call him Grande, and like, it's like a whole thing. So
El Grande?
El Grande.
What's your dad's name?
Eligio.
Eligio el Grande, man. That sounds like
Hey, man,
a very good.
That's a ring to it.
Yeah, man, I like it. Eligio el Grande.
Saludos a Eligio el Grande.
Yeah, yeah.
Pregunta de Eligio el Grande.
I know right now he's maybe taking he's still working, so yeah, hey, shout out.
What does he do right now?
It's so both of my parents are actually custodians at Del Valley High School, so the high school I grew up to. So my sister's a teacher at Del Valley. My younger sister currently goes to Del Valley. Before I took the program coordinator position, I was a fourth grade bilingual teacher at Del Valley, and so that's why I say that Austin feels like home, because even though I was 15 when I moved here, and have a lot of great memories and family members in Chico, I feel like this is home.
It's great. It's great to hear that you come from a family that has been so invested into its community and been like an integral part in the school system, man. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think that's where it comes, like the passion for education and soccer, because I know the importance of my parents at a young age, they were like, all right, soccer, like we could tell you love it and you want to play, but your grades have to be there for you to be able to for us to be able to support you, and also for us to be able to take time from work to be able to take you to trips, and just because it's every weekend is traveling, and
it's a lot. It's a lot of investment to play in this country, man.
Yeah,
the pay-to-play system and just going to tournaments and stuff. Maybe that's something that you can talk about, some of that experience of that high school club life going into the collegiate.
Yeah, and so in California, it was, like I said, a small town, so our club was, we're decent. We'd go to state. Because so in California, same thing as in Texas, there's a southern, there's North Texas and there's South Texas, and California's NorCal and then SoCal, right? Mm-hmm. Southern California. And so as far as Northern California, we would do great, come out of state, and then we would face those kids from Los Angeles and from Southern California.
Los Cholos.
Oh man, they would bring their fans, and I feel like those were my first experiences, like with fans and parents going crazy. And so there was the competition, but I think also part of the move actually to Texas, my parents, like I said, my dad worked out in the fields, and my mom would clean houses, and I feel like, it was like we're living like very just like paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. And so I think one of the main reasons why we moved to Austin was because, my dad had a dream about owning a home. So I had a few family members move to Austin, and they were like, hey, like, houses are very affordable. Like, come out, check it out, and just give it a try. And so combination of that, and also I remember having a conversation with my dad, like, hey, like I love living here and I love being with my friends, but like I want to be challenged, right? Because I would see that these kids in Southern California were, they would come and they would kill us 3-0-4-0, and it's like, okay, I know, I'm going to practice 2-3 times a week, but it's like I need more. So basically had some family members here in Texas, and I had a trainer in California that actually played in Monterrey, and he was living in like San Antonio, and he was like, hey, like Texas, like, there's a lot of good soccer as well. So it became part of it. I'm not saying the main reason why I moved to Austin was because of me, but it was like, okay, there's going to be more competition, because at this point, as a freshman in Chico, like I had already broken like records for goals, and I had already, so this Chico State, which is a D2 school in Chico, and so coaches were like, hey, like, you can, moving forward, like if you're interested, there's an opportunity for you to play here. And every time we'd go to Sacramento or San Francisco, like some coaches would have conversations with my parents, like, hey, if you're interested in, the drive to Sacramento or to the Bay Area, or maybe even if you have family over here, to stay over here and play for a club here. But I mean, that's a 2-3 hour drive. And so my parents were like, no, like, and it was just like, I don't think they were ready for that. And moving to Austin, like, I love that, like being able to play against higher competition was one of the biggest things. And just there was a larger pool of kids, right? And so quickly got involved in soccer, playing, and was able to, play for Lone Star, and also played with one of Sonny's summer club team that he created as well. And so I just got to meet a lot of my friends to this day. They were very, like, played against them, played with them here in Austin, and there's a lot of good talent. There's a lot of talent here in Austin, so it was cool to be able to experience that then and seeing where it is now. It's also, I mean, it's incredible and hopefully it continues to grow.
And one thing that I got from when you started talking is how your parents said, yes, you're going to be able to play, but your grades need to be good.
Yeah.
And I think, especially in the Latino community, we tend to forget that part. Like soccer is always going to be, that's our passion, right? And education doesn't mean you have to go to a 4-year, school like a university to get a degree. You can just be a trade thing, but something that gives you something new to learn or that expands your mind. That way you can have a piece of your name on a piece of paper that says you finished this plan of graduating. And that's pretty good how your parents were able to implement that to you at a younger age. Like, yes, you can play, but your grades gotta be good. And how was that for you? Like, did you struggle with that at first, or were you're like pretty good in school?
No, I'll be the first to say, like, I wasn't the smartest kid, like if you asked me what my favorite class was, I would say PE, right?
Lunch.
Still, yeah, lunch after school, No, yeah, I mean, growing up, like my goal wasn't to go to college, right? It's weird to see and it's crazy to think of, but my parents they didn't have the same opportunity. So I think my dad went to like 4th grade when he dropped out. My mom, she finished middle school. And so it was never, I had a couple aunts and uncles who were, in college and they got their bachelor's, but it was never like plan A. Like I said, plan A was to play soccer. And then I was like, okay, if I can go to college, like great. But one thing I really liked what you said is now my sister, so me and my sister, so I have 2 sisters, a younger one and an older one, and her and I both graduated from college. So my younger sister got to experience that. So my younger sister at age 9, 10, she was already saying, "Oh, I want to go to Texas A&M. Oh, I want to go to the University of Texas." Already thinking that. So, luckily, it comes from seeing us, but it's like my parents at a very young age, saying, and honestly, I think my parents were just like, he likes soccer. If we can use that as incentive for him to do good in class, because I was travieso, I couldn't stay still. There was always, my report cards were always the same, great student, but with friends, gets distracted and gets in trouble, right? That was from kindergarten. My mom kept those report cards and it was always the same. But I think, I did use that drive to be like, okay, I want to play soccer this weekend. I want to finish my homework. I want to do good. And like you said, and we tell the kids nowadays as well, we're not telling them, hey, go to, a 4-year private school, out of state or whatever. It's like, if you want to, we're helping them build those skills that, hey, if you want to work for your dad's business, great, you can go, we're helping you. So, to be able to communicate with, when you are working with them, you want to go to trade school, like you said, you want to, whatever you want to do, we want there's those soft skills that we believe that every kid should develop. And that's what we're using the power of soccer to develop these skills. Right. And, I mean, luckily I get to share my story with these kids every day. And it's like I said earlier, I feel like 20 years ago I was in their shoes. Right. And so I do think as Hispanics or Mexicans, como quieras decir, we do think it's not for me. No es para mí. It's not in my house. So it's like, no, you can change that. You can change that you could be the next generation and change that. So, lucky in my family, I was able to do it. I know not everyone's, has the same opportunities, but it's like trying to, take down that challenge, I guess.
Yeah. I think it starts with family for sure. It sounds like you grew up in a very, very loving and supportive household. Parents that gave you that encouragement to pursue something you're passionate for in football, but also use that as a motivator to get you to work on your studies and be very focused, or as focused as you could be at the time. Which I come from a similar household. I had very encouraging parents and parents that really pushed me to excel in whether it was soccer or taekwondo. But I feel that kids at that kind of adolescent age have a tendency to act out like we have there's a lot of changes happening in the body and the mental state. So if you're not in an environment where you're competing in a safe and healthy way, in a way that's going to improve your mind and body, you're going to do it in ways that are detriment to your safety and to the well-being of others. Like you're gonna get into some bad shit, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I love what you're doing, and I love your story, man. Kind of getting back into some of your background. I wanted you to kind of describe some of the challenges that you faced, whether it was in high school or college, and some advice you wish you could have given yourself back then.
Yeah. Well, just to even lead off with what you said is, I think in California, a lot of my friends, I grew up in a low-income apartment complex. My dad was always working. My mom, she did her best, but she was, taking care of the house and just taking care of my sister and everything. And so I don't want to say I grew up like in the toughest area, but it was also like, there's a lot of distraction. Like you could easily get distracted, right?
You could easily go off the path.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And, like I still have friends in California that decided to take those different paths. And, I don't think any less of them. I still go back to Chico and I still, hang out. I still have a beer with them. I still go visit their family. And, like those are the people you grew up with, and those are the people in your community. And luckily, again, going back, soccer was kind of my outlet, right? So it was like, I feel like I grew up with the kids who were getting in trouble, but I think at the end of the day, they would see me and they're like, okay, like, we know you have, you can go, you can use your talent of soccer or whatever it is to go places. And I think they always respected that. And I feel like that's why I still, like I said, to this day, I still go visit them. And I still appreciate everything they did, because even though, like I was like a choice away from doing the wrong choice and, ending up in somewhere that, that my parents wouldn't be happy or I wouldn't be happy with. And so,
much more difficult path.
Exactly.
It's crazy looking back and seeing those like moments where things could have shifted the other way.
Yeah.
And it's good how your friends respected that part, that you were good in soccer, obviously. And then they weren't like, I guess they respected the fact that they see you could go somewhere.
Yeah.
And through that you kept the connection. And a lot of the times, even when you make it, like let's say in a Hispanic culture, te olvidas de la raza.
Yeah.
Like we have that tendency of once we make it, we forget about, our people, and we just stick to the people that are in the level that we got. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with making it, but also knowing your roots, where you come from. And I like how you said you still go back and hang out with them, because I'm pretty sure somewhere down the line, a kid is gonna be like, man, look at what Pepe is doing. I want to be right in that, like in the spot, like subconsciously you're a role model to people that you like, for the people that you go back to, maybe not your friends directly, but probably their kids. Have you ever thought of that?
Yeah, no. And like, for me, it's important to be around people that, whether it's family or friends that, that supported you at one point, or they just like, I think everyone has a good heart. And so being able to, I spent 10 years of my childhood with these friends. And so it's like, yeah, they decided to go a different way, or, they decided whatever, but it's like, at the end of the day, like that doesn't make them a bad person. Right. And so for me, and like, as you guys can tell, like for me, it's like my tattoo, like inspire. Like, I just think that for me, it's really important just to inspire, right? Whether it's people older than me or younger than me or whatever, girls, boys, like whatever, whoever it is, I think that if I could inspire them, or if I could even just share my story and be able to like, hey, like, okay, maybe I could do this differently, or hey, it worked for this. Because I wish, like, all three of us probably at one point we could be like, oh, I wish I would have, not necessarily regret, but it's like, I wish I could have told my young self this, right? And that could have changed a little bit of where we are now, or just.
Yeah, it's always easy to connect the dots looking backwards. But one thing I can attest to, man, just from volunteering with Upper 90 at the time, now Verde Leaders, is how much the kids love and respected you, even if you weren't there, or even if you showed up for a little bit. that kind of told me a little bit about you without actually knowing you. I know you'd went through some difficult times with injuries. I remember you were having like extensive problems and issues with your knee and your ACL. So I was wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about that, what that experience was like, having to deal with that while also trying to lead an organization that was very active.
Yeah, and so I think, I mean, coming back to your other question, right, the biggest obstacle, I think that has been it, because so after I graduate, like I had some injuries in college, and then, you know, I thought I was done playing, and I was like, okay, like I'm done with soccer. I'm not trying to play at a very competitive level. And that, you know, I was playing men's league. I was playing, it was like a $5,000 tournament or something, and it was like just my knee went out. And it was, I think, the scariest moment of my life. And so, yeah, this was back in 2019. That's probably the lowest I've been. And so, like, not just as far as like sports, but like your day-to-day changes so much. And so going back to like physically, I knew I was going to get there, because I, you know, like just growing up playing soccer, and like I like the working out, and I like the, you know, becoming stronger or faster or whatever. Like that's something,
the process and the work behind it.
Exactly. And I think that's very, you know, you go find a trainer or find a buddy who wants to work out, and I think that's easier. But that was the first time that mentally I struggled the most. Like emotionally, like I just was at my lowest. And so, you know, unluckily some of my close friends and also my parents had to see me like that. But then I think I gave myself like a month or two of just like being sad and being like, okay, like, you know, like being borderline, you know, like I guess just being just mentally not, or, you know, very strong. And then so I actually went back to training, and I was like back at it, and I felt a little bit better. And actually I was on the field with you when the second time, it wasn't, so
that's right.
2019.
You actually
got two.
You actually came out with the Bailey boys for one night. I believe maybe Pacheco invited
Pacheco, yeah. Pacheco. I'm still pissed at him. I still don't want to talk to him. Why didn't he shouldn't have invited me.
Ese vato me debe un 20.
No. Yeah, so.
Te lo agarro y yo sé dónde vive el vato.
Hey.
Le traigo unos cholos.
Yeah, no. Me debe, o sea, todavía. Me debe una rodilla y la operación. No, but so 2019, the first one happened, and it was my first big injury. So I'm like, you know, just scrambling, finding a surgeon, like trying to do physical therapy wherever I can, like trying to work and just trying to balance everything. And then I was like 8-9 months out. I had already, you know, I started running. I started doing more physical activity, and then Pacheco invited me to go play. Before that, we had like a week of training at the UT intramural fields. Mm-hmm. So we're like doing just like, I was like, okay, I want to start out
nice
slow.
Fields.
Yeah, nice yeah.
Fields.
Exactly, with lights. And so, but you know, like you just missed, like I just missed playing soccer, and it was already like, it was 10 months, and I was like, man, like you feel a little bit.
It's
and
almost
you're
like you got an itch. Like you just have to go out there and play.
Exactly. And so we're playing, and I remember this was my first time in this field, and it was maybe like AV8, 9v9, playing small sided. It started getting dark. And again, back to the itch. You know, I had been playing soft, just touching the ball around.
Yeah.
Pacheco has the ball, and I remember going, like, I was like, okay, like I'm going to try to go in a little bit stronger.
I remember that like it was yesterday. I looked up and I saw you and Pacheco going body to body, like full contact, full force, and I thought, man, this is not going to end well.
Yeah.
Dang.
The mind isn't thinking. It's just your like it's just reaction. Yeah.
At Bailey's.
Yeah. And so I felt like a pull, like a hamstring, I don't know if you guys have like a hamstring, but it was like behind my knee. So I remember panicking. I was like, okay. So I stopped. I went over to Caitlin's house, which is the VP.
Caitlin.
Community Impact. Yeah.
She just got married, right?
This weekend.
Oh,
yep.
Congrats, Caitlin.
Congratulations, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I panicked, and so, you know, her being one of my mentors and just being someone that I could just trust completely, her and her husband, I drive over there and I'm like, hey, like I just felt something, like, you know, I just need ice, or I need to calm down, basically. And so they took me in, they gave me ice, just kind of hung out, talked a little bit, but there was no swelling. So I was kind of like, I was a little bit, like there wasn't any swelling, and I felt something like it felt more like a pulse. So I was like, oh, I think I'm fine. And so I like go back, like I take like a week break, and then I go back to just running again and trying to do like just literally kicking the ball to a wall and just trying to get my touches back. And then I was coaching at one of the schools at Dobie, and when kids kicked the ball up, and I went to just control it, and my knee buckled. No one around me, and I think all of the kids just freaked out because they just saw me go down, and I felt the pop again and instant swelling, and I remember just taking a minute. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be strong because these kids are around, but like just wanted to be like, just felt like the ground just
wow,
took me
crazy, man. And it was like in a place where you should be strong,
exactly,
in front of people. That's and how was that? I mean, sorry, continue. Then you gotta let them know what happened over here. No, go ahead.
No. So after that, I'm like, okay, now, like you said, being on the field, like it's like I have to be active, right? I have to just be able to move around. And so went into surgery like 2 days before my birthday for the second time. A different surgeon,
Thank you.
One that was a little bit more with sports injuries, and went through the whole process. But again, like I mentioned earlier, after the first surgery, I was at my lowest, but this was like times 20. Like you think you're close, you think you're getting back to it. And before my first injury, I was playing soccer like Monday through Friday. I was going to Soccer Zone South. I was playing men's league, Pflugerville, around like anything. And this is what I think, I'm a believer that, stuff kind of happens for a reason. And I think it was just like God telling me like, all right, you need to take a break, because I was playing.
It sounds familiar. It reminds me of someone out there, someone that should be here talking with us.
I know, right?
That's crazy. Our bodies have a limit, man.
I'm glad he's like over there, like in a train right now, probably going to the Empire State.
Yeah.
And not playing soccer for a while.
There's a lot of walking in New York though, so tell him to make sure.
Lo carga Hannah, don't worry. He's a girl guy.
She's a strong woman.
Or Ryan.
Sorry to interrupt, man. You were saying the second time was way worse, and
that's when I think mentally I was like emotional, like I was just done. Like I didn't want to be around anyone. Oh, and this was last year, so COVID, right? So it's a pandemic, and so I'm like,
it just gets doubled on you, man.
Yeah. So when I had my surgery, my dad was able to just walk me into like the check-in, and then he was out. So I'm like with the mask, like everyone like super careful. And I remember just waking up and, like again, my knees just like, excuse me, it's just completely just going through everything again. But now, so it's the same knee. First time was MCL, ACL. Second time was ACL, PCL. So ACL and PCL do the exact opposite. So I couldn't bear weight or bend my knee it was 8 weeks, so 2 months. So the bottom of my foot was like turning purple because I literally couldn't do anything to it. And I would just lay in bed, and like my parents, I stayed those first like 2-3 months with my parents, and they would like bring me food and then drop it off and then just like come pick it up. And I was like trying to do like push-ups and just trying to like do my work and just like trying to do something. But I mean, being by yourself locked in a super small room and just mentally, like, it got the best of me. And just very, I think the first time, like I said, I think it was like a month or like 3-4 weeks of just like feeling sorry for myself. But this one was like, I was mad at the world, and I was mad at my friends, and I was mad at my parents, and it was for no reason. And it was just because, like I just had to take it out on someone. And unfortunately, like it had to be to those that I loved, but it was a very, very tough time in my life.
That's tough, man.
Did you have a girlfriend at that time?
Yeah. And so so it was very like, it was a tough time, for sure. And her other friends, I think they all saw that I was struggling. Mm-hmm. And so some of them, when they did ask, to help me and they tried to give me a hand, I was like, nah, like I was just pushing people away.
It's tough, man. It's tough when we're going through moments in life that are extremely difficult for us, and we're in a dark place, that the people you end up pushing and hurting are the people that are the closest to you and that love you the most. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, that's when you need the most love. and the most care. And that shows true friendship, family, and significant others when they can look past your funk and like really get in there and try to support you, even if you're trying to push them away. So lucky for you that you had your family here and a girlfriend here that were able to kind of be there for you, that support network, even if you didn't want them to be there. Yeah. I'm pretty sure at the time you just wanted to just deal with it.
Yeah, I mean,
or just be on your own, which is the toughest time. It's the hardest way to deal with problems.
Yeah, for me, it was very just like at this point, like I stopped watching soccer, and I was just like, I got really big with just like listening to music, and you know, it was like during the time where like I started listening to like Nipsey Hussle, and just again like going to Inspire, and just like watching his interviews, and just just trying to stay somewhat motivated. But
right around when he passed away. Or?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah. So it was really big actually. So believe if I'm not wrong, he passed away in 2019. So that was during my first surgery. So it was a lot of just listening to him, his interviews as well, and just like
real inspirational figure.
Yeah, for sure.
And remind me if I'm incorrect, he passed away similar to around the time Kobe passed away, didn't he? Or was it a little bit after?
I can't remember, to be honest.
So Kobe was
early 2020.
Yeah, Kobe was
so kind of
but
pretty
yeah.
But I remember, within the same year. Well, it was 2019 and 2020, but it was like less than 12 months that both of them. So yeah, I mean a lot. So I grew up as a Sacramento Kings fan in Northern California, but so I grew up hating the Lakers.
Right.
But you got to appreciate who Kobe is.
You can't deny the greatness. And someone with, like the figure that he is, going through so many injuries, like the type of injuries he had, which were some of them were the similar career-ending injuries. Yeah, coming back from them, that's crazy, man. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad. How are you doing now?
I a lot better. So my last surgery was back in June of last year. I think so. From leading from the first injury to the second one, I think it was like my mentality from the first one was like, I want to get back on the field and I want to start playing, even if it's men's league or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. After the second one, I was like, okay, my mentality is when I'm 30 and 30, 35 and I have kids, I want to be able to run with them. And so
I'm right there with you.
Mentality changed. So it's crazy. Like I haven't played competitive soccer in over 2 years, which is mind blowing. Mm-hmm. But like, again, luckily enough with my job, I get to play with kids who aren't forced to be there, kids that want to be there, kids that love soccer, kids that will play with jeans, barefooted, whatever. And it made me see how this is why I started playing soccer when I was 4 or 5. And this is the love that I had for the game. So every day I get reminded that, it's more than just like the competitive drive. And
it's more than a game.
It's more than a game. Exactly.
It's life, what we're
exactly.
About, for sure.
And so hopefully I'm on the fields in the next 6 months or less. But like I said, I don't think there's a rush anymore like there was after that first one.
So you're still pretty much like on recovery right now?
Yeah, still recovering. There's just too much trauma. So even if they told me, I remember they first told me, they're like, okay, well, so an ACL, the first time you can get back on the field, 7-8 months. Mm-hmm. And then the second time they're like, okay, you're looking at 12 to 18 months. Mm-hmm. And so that's almost triple. Yeah. And so I am my knee still deals with a little bit of swelling, and there's still just very, I really don't have feeling. So I'll hit myself and it's I'll be bleeding. I'm bleeding, but I didn't feel the hit because it's just the skin and all the nerves, there's a lot of damage. So, I'm still kind of in that recovery mode, I guess you would say.
And on top of that, you have this amazing stuff that you're doing. That's, I don't know, dude. That sounds like, how can I say it? It's I think that, it's a work in progress. The whole, with the knee thing and how that slowed you down. How you said earlier, it's because of, maybe God wanted you to take a break. And if it seems like if you were healthy, you would probably not be maybe 100% on what you're doing right now. And it's como que Dios te quita una y te da otra. Una de cal por una de arena.
No, see, that's how I think that's how I do see life, right?
Yeah.
It's like I was so focused I was already head coach, or I was already involved with, at this point we're upper 90, I was already involved, but at their practice, like, coaching 25, 30, 35 kids. But if I have a game that night, I'm already thinking like, oh, I have, at 10, like I have to be ready. Like I'm going to warm up a little bit and I'm going to kick the ball around with the kids, but I'm focused on like me doing that. Yeah. And I was doing, in the morning I would work out, go to work, and then, go to upper 90 practice, and then I would go play. And then sometimes I would still have to try. My dad was working late at the Del Valley gym, so I would go over there 30 minutes, just do it. And so I was like, physically I felt good, but like I was, like there's a limit, I think. Like you said, the body has a limit. And so I think it was like, okay, now I'm, even though I still love the game, and like, but now it's like, how can I use the power of soccer again? But now it's like the next generation, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, the body has a limit. Life has an expiration date. It's tough. These are things that we all deal with, and one thing I did want to touch on a little bit with you guys is, this being November, it is kind of Men's Health Awareness Month. It's part of the reason I'm growing this
I saw that. I was just about to ask you. I see, hey man,
mustache.
Own it.
Hey man, I'm owning my passionate. I got inspired by Esteban. He was like, hey man, you gotta own your passionate. I'm like, fuck it, let's go. But
yeah, at least I don't mean to cut you off, but at least you can grow facial.
Yeah.
I'm 27 and I'm
here for all the baby face people out there trying to grow a mustache. We're doing our
holding
thing.
It down for us.
Holding it down. But the point of men's health awareness is just kind of raise awareness on a number of issues. First is like testicular cancer. The other is prostate cancer, and the other thing is just mental health for men. So appreciate you coming on the podcast and like touching on some of your low moments, being vulnerable and letting us know how you dealt with those things, because it's not a lot of things that it's not very common for men to come out to just talk about how low moments in their life or what they're going through. But I think we got to normalize it more.
Yeah,
and you coming
sure.
on the podcast is a little step towards that, and you being part of Verde Leaders and kind of opening those types of conversations is part of that, So yeah, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
And I think even more with like Hispanic male, like we're not supposed to be sad. We're not supposed to be
strong.
Yeah.
You're supposed to not cry. You know?
And so that's another one of my, I guess, role models. It was more on the field, but recently what he's done a lot in these interviews and what you see from him, like Chicharito. Like I don't know, like we know, like we see what he does on the field, but I've been able to follow him, from the beginning. Right. Exactly. And he's he talks about his low points. He talks about his change and his development as a human, right? Mm-hmm. We see him as a lot of people see him, and including myself, we see him as a soccer player, and we're easy to criticize him. But it's like all these athletes at the end of the day, like they're all humans. And so for them to be able to speak, they're in a big platform. They have a large platform and a large following. So for Chicharito to come out and interview his first game back after injury and cry and celebrate those 2 goals with this, like that to me is powerful. And not only because he's Mexican and he played for Chivas and he played for Real Madrid and Manchester, all these teams that I like.
He literally played for all the teams you like.
Yeah. Hey, it just happened that way.
This is life.
But truly, like, and there's a lot more. There's artists and other professional athletes who have been in public and they've talked about their mental health. But like you said, we got to normalize it. Like, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be able to speak about our feelings. And for me, like, that's one thing when I talk to the kids is like, hey, when I was your age, my friends weren't going to see me cry, right? Yeah. I wasn't going to talk about my feelings. But now that I'm older, it's like, I'm as real as I could be with these kids, because at the end of the day, those kids can read through the bullshit. Mm-hmm.
They can, for sure.
And so if I'm putting up a front, if I'm being this or I'm doing that, it's like, so I try to keep it as real. And, if I'm having a bad day or if I'm sad, like I said, when they saw me get injured, they'll feel for me. Like they saw me with the crutches out there on the field and trying to do my best. But I think that's when, like you're able to have these connections with the kids, because they see that you're not you're not being fake. You're not trying to just be another person in my life. I'm really there because I really do care about you, and and hope, like, even though this program is for them to be able to develop their skills and to play soccer and to, just become better humans, better soccer players on and off the field, but it's like, it's helped me too as a coach and now as a program coordinator. Like, they've helped me, be able to express myself. Yeah. They've helped me have communication skills. Now I can, I just feel more comfortable around kids and just being able to be myself. And so, as much as I say that I helped them, like, they've helped me tremendously as well. It's good. It's something I appreciate.
Nice.
It's good, man. And I think we have a lot of, like, say, for example, another example of me as an Americanista, I wish he could have done the same. Cuauhtémoc Blanco. If he would have taken care of a lot of his mental stuff, I think he would have been in a different situation. But and if you look at it, like, say, going back to the mental health part, look at how many, like, players in Mexico, maybe we haven't gone to the next step because we haven't dealt with that issue, being vulnerable of like, just taking care of ourselves, like our mental health, especially because every 4 years we go through a loss, right? Every 4 years we go through a heartbreak. And now you see a little more, like, I think they have inspirational coaches that come in and talk and do this inspirational things. But if we look at it, a lot of the Mexican players, they don't really want to show their emotion compared to, like, other countries, like in South America. I mean, you feel a little more vulnerability there. And it's just Chicharito's doing something different in that aspect. Right. And it might not seem like, he's just faking. Like, nah, he's actually showing who he really is.
Yeah, and he gets a lot of slack for it, man. Yeah. He gets so much criticism, but I think he's probably the most transparent Mexican player there is, in terms of saying exactly what he thinks, exactly what he feels, and what he's going through and how he's dealing with it. Sometimes people receive truths in a way that are like, it doesn't follow the script of what he should be acting like. So whenever you don't follow the script of what people think you should be acting like, people are going to reject you or criticize you. And I feel like the Mexican press and just the Mexican press in general is like, it's pretty...
It's tough.
It's the worst.
It is tough, dude. It is tough on players. It is tough on coaches. It is tough on anyone.
Even between themselves.
It's every sport. Like, I was listening to I don't know how much you guys follow, like, boxing, like Canelo.
Yeah,
Canelo's doing his thing, right? Like, I appreciate.
To me,
like,
he's the king of boxing.
Yeah, he's the face of boxing for sure. But after that fight, I remember looking at Rafa Marquez in an interview, the older boxer, and they asked him, they're like, hey, like, do you think he's one of the top boxers? And he was like, no. Like,
right,
Marquez?
Juan Manuel Marquez. Yeah, cause Rafa is his brother.
Oh, okay.
They're bros.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw the interview too.
And it's like, he's from Mexico. Like, I know you're past your. It's like envidia. Like,
he was a little jealous.
Yeah, and the comments were like, dude, jealous. It's like obvious that, like. And I think that's why you have Chicharito, you have Carlos Vela, who they're sick of the media, and the media just doesn't help the Mexican athlete, and especially in their country. So,
Chicharito, if you ever want to come on the podcast, I mean,
we'll welcome you with open arms, man.
We can let you talk, but Carlos Vela, same to you.
Only if you wear a Chivas jersey.
Ooh.
Dad, I don't know.
That's actually how I met Richie.
Oh, yeah.
We met at the Clark soccer field, like probably 2017, 2016 probably.
Yeah.
And I was wearing a Chivas jersey, and I don't know where he just came up to me and said, I don't even remember, but the point is that I knew you were an America fan, and we were talking shit.
Oh, because you were like pretty strong. I'm like, and that's in the time when I was like, like beefing up and working out.
Yeah, we were bonding
up. Vato le voy a dar ahorita.
yeah, but it developed
but it was a clean going at it each other.
Friendship for life. And then I don't know if you came to Bailey after that, or you had already been going, but you met all the guys. But man, it's crazy how soccer.
I have a
circle.
Yeah, no, and it's like, this is actually the first time I've actually said this story though, but So yeah, like you mentioned, I'm a Chivas fan, but
that's all good.
no. But look, and I'm gonna
no, pleito ahorita, no te preocupes.
No, but I'm gonna be open, and I like a lot of people don't know this actually about me. So growing up, my dad, you know, like even though he played basketball, like he's a big Pumas fan.
Yeah.
Big Pumas fan. All of my dad's family is Pumas or America. My mom's side is all Cruz Azul. Like they are Cruz Azul. So I'm happy for them. You know, they got to experience the championship in the last 25 whatever years.
Hey,
so
Chaparro.
Yeah.
He loved that.
Yeah.
Now he's in New York right now.
Yeah,
he's still celebrating the championship.
Yeah, he's still.
But yeah, so growing up, my parents would buy me, they would buy me, Morelia, because Michoacan, yeah, they would buy me like Boca Junior, River, like all the uniforms, they would get me Santos, whatever it was, but
Santos por el Sony.
Santos por Sony, Morelia because of Sunny too.
Yeah, dude.
Necaxa por Sony, Atlante por Sony.
Yeah. Dorados, Sony. They even bought me the Austin Bull.
Austin Bull jersey.
It wasn't even a franchise, but yeah. But they bought me. So growing up, my favorite colors were black and red.
Yeah.
So Atlas. When they bought me the Atlas, I was like, this is my, I was like 3 or 4.
Yeah, you just were gravitating towards those black and red.
Those colors, I was like, I didn't know anything about their history, but I was like, man, this is it. So I remember watching those games and I started following, like when like people always ask me, like, what did you watch as a kid? Like what cartoons? And I was like, honestly, like I just watched soccer.
Yeah.
And so watching La Liga Mexicana, watching Copa Libertadores, and so just being able to watch Atlas was like, every weekend, me and my dad would catch like 3, 4. He would watch Pumas, I would watch Atlas. My sister, my mom would catch the Cruz Azul game. We're just watching every game.
Yeah.
And so, from 5 to 8, I remember just like I was fully Atlas. And then this is where it gets funny, and you're gonna enjoy this one because you're gonna remind me. Un paletero came to our apartment.
I can see that going.
Paletero came, yeah. And he was the biggest Chivas fan, like just biggest Chivas fan.
Over in Cali.
Yeah, in Chico. And so he's coming, and I show up with my Atlas jersey. Oof. Like, hey, $1. Like,
charge you extra.
Yeah, yeah. I'm surprised he didn't charge me. But he was like, he was like, obviously jokingly, he was like, no, like if you have that shirt, I'm not giving you whatever. Service. Yeah, no service basically. And then I was with a friend or someone was like, like it was like 10 people like joining stuff, and I was like, well, like like I have my $1, like, and he was like, no, solo like te doy gratis if you bring if you wear a Chivas jersey. And so one of my friends or some neighbor heard it, and he's like, hey, I have a Chivas jersey. And so this guy brought the Chivas jersey, and me la puse, just for the free paleta, and ever since then,
no te la quitaste.
No me la quité.
That's funny.
Till that day, I remember a few days later, that neighbor was like, "Hey, I want my jersey back." I was like, "No, this is my this is my team."
Gonna be free ice cream, bro.
Yeah, and so me vendí for paleta, but hey, that's how the story is.
That's gonna be the name of the me vendí por paletas.
So the only person that calls me out for that still is my dad, because he's the only him and you two and everyone who's listening.
I grew up liking Necaxa because Aguinaga, Ivo Basay, and then my first game in the Azteca, like not playing but like going, no, like in a club wise, not actually. I got to see Bolivia and Mexico in the Confederaciones.
Oh, nice.
I forgot to tell Javi Pereira about that. And then, but my first, like, I would say Liga MX was Necaxa Chivas. And one of my uncles, he was a teacher in a university, and era de paga, so they had palcos, and they invited us. So we went, and we were in a palco in El F.
Okay. Oh, they at this point, they were still.
Yeah, they were still in El F. So it was on a Saturday, and after the game, the palco gives you the privilege of going to where the players are leaving the locker room into the bus, and that's how they sign autographs. So I got to see all the Chivas players, which back then Osvaldo Sanchez was just, I think, his second season in Chivas, and even Chuy Mendoza, and then after that he went to America. I got to see Aguinaga, and then there was this one guy in the second Club World Cup ever, which was 2000. Montesinos, he was a Uruguayo, I believe.
Yeah.
He had he dyed his hair and it had rayos. It was like bald headed, yellow, like blonde, and then the rayos design. So I got to meet him, and he was actually mad because he didn't play. So we were leaving, and my uncle was like, "Hey, is that Montesinos?" Like, "Oh, heck yeah!" But I'm a little kid. I go say hi, and he gives me the autograph and stuff. But it's the first game that I got to see was Necaxa Chivas, not in America. Not until like the day after, we went to see America Pachuca.
Yeah.
But I grew up liking like Necaxa because, I mean, they're from the DF and I'm from the DF. So America and Necaxa, they're from the DF. And Necaxa was actually catering to the kids. So when I was young, I was like, Necaxa, America.
Yeah.
When I got older, and
yeah,
I always appreciated Necaxa, but America is right there.
My first game was I don't know which one was first, but I saw Chivas en La Piedad. I don't know if you remember. Reboceros.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't know if at this point I was pulling for Chivas or not, but I remember, because it's a super small stadium, Chivas was leaving, and Osvaldo Sanchez, I remember that, like, all my family knows this story. Osvaldo Sanchez, like, people were, like, booing him, this and that. He probably didn't even look this way, but I was next to my mom, and like he looked over and he blew a kiss, and in my head I was like 10. He blew a kiss too. I was like, oh, I'm done with it. Like Osvaldo Sanchez.
Cut that shit.
Yeah, cut that. And that was a friendly though, I think, when I saw, and then first like official game that I can remember is Morelia America too.
Okay.
In Morelia, and that was also crazy experience. America fans are everywhere, so. And like, Morelia fans are like all like family members, and it's like very like
it's like
a
lot more event, more chill, more laid back.
Nah, dude, awesome. It's interesting how like La Liga de Mexico has a lot of stories for us because we grew up on it.
Yeah.
And Morelia already out right now, like they're not in la primera.
Yeah.
They're in the how do you call it? La de desarrollo. So they took out the descenso and now it's like anymore. So now I think
they've been trying to figure out that structure, but the Federacion's just been like I was telling you earlier. Like I grew up watching Liga Mexicana, but it's changed so much, and it's just like I admit that I stepped away from it a little bit. I don't catch it as much, but again, when I go over to my parents, me and my dad still catch like 2 or 3 games. Yeah, another story. When I first went saw Morelia, or I was actually in Michoacan. So my family, we grew up going to Michoacan for Christmas, and we would spend a month there, spend New Year's there. And there was one year that Morelia was going to play Chivas, or it might have been Tecos, because I think El Bofo. So El Bofo, my idol growing up, right?
He played from Morelia.
Morelia,
first,
But he was, I don't know, was he in Morelia first and then Tecos, or Tecos and Morelia?
I think it was Morelia, then Tecos, and then Chivas.
Yeah. Yes. Because he came, he wasn't going to be home. So I think he was in Tecos maybe, because I remember, like, everyone from my parents' rancho knew that I was a big Bofo fan, and so, they were like, hey, like it was like after New Year's, a week after, they're like, hey, like, like I'll buy your ticket, literally. Like, let's go watch the game. Like, Bofo's gonna be there, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. I found out that same day when I found out that Bofo was gonna go to play against Morelia, that my flight was on the same day to fly back to school with my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, damn.
So I remember crying, and I was like, no, like, move my flight. But they're like, no, like, you have to be back in school on Monday, so you can't. And they made a sign. They were like, because growing up, I used to be bald as well. Like everyone used to just, I used to like El Bofo. So they were like, they made a sign that was like saludos al Bofito, and like it came out on TV, and I was like, all right, like it's cool for my family. But all my family went to that game. So
dude, so you remember Abreu, Sebastián Abreu?
Yeah.
he used to play for Tecos before
Yeah.
he went to Uruguay.
He's played in like 20 teams.
But he played in 20
just
teams.
retired
everywhere.
Like
just
a
retired
week
last
ago.
week.
Yeah.
Team, and
But
he probably played
but he was ball headed, and Bofo got that idea from him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
Oh,
was because I still I hopefully I can find the magazine, because there was I got the magazine on the way from Mexico to Laredo, and it had like Bofo ball headed, and then sorry, not Bofo, Abreu, and then I see Bofo like a year later, like with that style.
Yeah.
And I was like, is that Abreu? We're like, nah, that's another guy. And they're like, El Bofo Bautista. I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah.
But that was pretty funny how he picked it up from El Loco Abreu.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, now that you got me thinking about like old Liga MX games and Libertadores games, I never got the chance to actually go to a Mexican league game in Mexico, except, recently, I think 3 years ago, I went to an Atlas Monterrey game. And I got to see Rafa Marquez kind of at the twilight of his career.
Yeah.
It was nice. But the most memorable game I've ever seen was a Libertadores, Chivas Boca Juniors.
Oh.
You remember that game in La Bombonera?
Was it the
4-0
4-0 they beat it?
First, the 4-0, that was
Jalisco.
in Jalisco.
Yeah.
Y
And
luego
then they went
le
and they
metieron
like held
dos
it down.
más. Yeah.
But they like the Boca.
Ese Peckerman.
He spit on El Bofo.
And El Bofo,
He
yeah.
spit on Bofo.
Yeah.
And that was...
I was a kid. I was like, what?
Is
what
it
is
the year
happening
before
right now?
that he didn't get called by La Volpe
Yeah.
for the World Cup? Because I for me, Bofo should have been on the
Bofo
list
should
with
have been there.
Cuauhtemoc.
He was in his prime, dude.
Well, no,
Yeah.
which year though?
In 2000, like that happened
2006.
2005,
2005,
2006.
2006.
Because there was that whole in 2010 when El Bofo went when he shouldn't have gone.
He should have.
Oh, yeah, he was past his prime.
Cuauhtemoc should have been there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
So,
Pero
that's crazy how you say like that's the game that like
It's just ingrained in your mind that
Yeah.
the ida y vuelta, las dos, for different reasons, are just in your mind. The
Dude.
ida for the golazos, for like
dude like outside the
Every-
18 booth like it was
every
just
goal was
Alfaro,
like a
Bofo.
fucking peak highlight. And then the second game, the way they held it down in like the most dangerous stadium in the world, probably, and just how the fans could
It's
not
crazy,
take
dude.
that a Mexican team
yeah,
like came out.
I remember to so going back to Libertadores. When America, like the first America 2000, in the year 2000, they went to the semifinals and they lost to Boca like by one freaking goal, like in the last 5 minutes. Well, they were gonna play in Azteca, and one of my uncles, he comes to my dad like, hey, I have another ticket, like I want to take Richie, and we were like on the verge of coming here, so we had to save money and stuff. And my dad was like, no, we have to save money. And I was like, dude. And also, I mean, even America lost. I was like, man, I could have been there. It would have been a life-changing story and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I think after that, I was like, you know what? Every game that I can't go, I'm gonna go.
Yeah. But Mexican teams did have a disadvantage because I don't even remember that rule that was like they could never play La Vuelta
In
Mexican
Mexico.
soil.
Mexico, yeah.
And so
Especially the final.
yeah, exactly.
Or if they win a Libertadores, the Mexican team doesn't go representing South America. It'll be el otro finalista.
Yeah, which I think that affected a little bit, but it's unfortunate that the Mexican teams aren't longer in there. But those are some of the best stories, like some of the best games
That
or
was
memories
the
of.
worst move to come out of Libertadores.
Yeah,
Because
To me, that was when peak competition.
Yeah.
Mexican teams got to play in peak competition level.
because Tigres was the last one, right? And
Tigres,
what
I
year?
think they played the
They lost
final,
the final,
2016, 17 con River.
Yeah, I think well, it was Chivas, Tigres, and Cruz Azul play a final with them.
Cruz Azul.
Yeah, so it
Con
was
este
three
Cardoso
just
was
run-
in that team. Palencia, because Palencia moved to Villarreal after that.
Yeah,
Crazy
And
times,
some
man.
good times, man.
dude,
Times.
I mean, hopefully MLS, they can go up in that level like Libertadores, because like in La Liga MX, like the teams need it, man. They need that
They
competition.
need a competition level for sure. Yeah. So I want to kind of reel us back a little bit, and we got really excited. We started getting on to Mexican football. It's the topic.
I think it's that the Hop Squad.
Hop Squad.
Pup
Shout
squad.
out to Hop Squad for the Pup Squad brew. It's a seasonal brew,
Yeah,
correct, Richie?
yeah. I think that's spooky something. I don't know. I
Don't know what type of beer this is, but
was
it's,
like, give me the seasonal one. They're
The sign
like,
is
that
really
one.
cool, too.
it's delicious. It's got little puppies on it. I think Pepe's fond of pups. He has a pup himself.
Yes, I do.
It's todo.
What's her name?
His name. So I have he's 15-month golden retriever named Ross. I don't know if you guys ever watched Friends, and he's a big Austin FC fan. So
I got a cat named Machin.
yeah,
For Machin Alvarez. Yeah.
Oh, is he?
That's what's up. I have 4 chickens, 4 hens.
There you go.
Loretta, Odette, Charlie, and Frankie.
Está. ¿Te dan huevos todos los días, verdad?
Every day, man. Puro huevo. A huevo.
You don't have to go to the grocery store anymore?
Nah, none of that.
HEB los vende muy caros.
Well, yeah, good to know that your dog is an Austin FC fan. A little bit back on the Austin FC family. Can you talk to us a little bit about 4ATX, the foundation?
Yeah, so 4ATX Foundation is the nonprofit arm of Austin FC, which is it's made out of a team of 5 of us. Caitlin being the VP of Community Impact, and her being a badass, and just I know
Shout out to Caitlin, man.
Yeah, man, she's amazing.
She's awesome.
Hey, her Spanish is on point. If you guys ever want to get her on here as well.
Hey, man,
Que le
Caitlin
caiga.
would make
Yeah.
excellent guest
Yeah.
for sure.
And so, yeah, she was, when she took that VP position, so like we were upper 90 before that, and when she offered me the position to come and join the 4ATX Foundation, which it was basically she was going to run the nonprofit arm of Austin FC, and her just being able to do stuff for the community, right? Just being able to, Austin, we know that Austin is one of the best cities in the country, but it also, there's a lot of resources, but not a lot of people are available to have these resources. So what she and the entire team is trying to do is, just close the barrier, right? So there's a lot of, like, the power of soccer could do so much to a city. And so she's able to, as a foundation, we're able to, give scholarships. Like we were talking about earlier, soccer is very expensive to play, right, in any club. Yeah, and so we're able to, give them scholarships. We're able to send kids, boys and girls of all ages, to play in or to participate in summer camps as well. There's a lot of soccer fields around Austin, but some of them don't have nets. So getting Verde nets on those fields, there's so much, and also the mini pitches. So we're working on the 3rd one. That it was just announced yesterday that there's one being built on Montopolis. Nice. There's one here not too far, like 10 minutes away, and there's one over there in Dove Springs. And so there's some old tennis courts that aren't being used. So why not? Why not repurpose them?
Exactly. Sorry to interrupt. Is the one that you're talking about 10 minutes away? It's on like Brandberg and Parkfield around there.
It's called Woolridge Elementary School. It's right. I believe so.
Yeah. Because I was driving by a couple of days ago, and I saw like kids playing. I was like, man, that actually looks nice.
Yeah.
And I was like, but now that I know it's actually a pitch that you guys came with, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
and
cool.
So we worked with U.S. Soccer Foundation and other partnerships to be able to create these fields, because obviously they're not cheap. But yeah, it's a place now. You have hubs around Austin, which we're going to be at 3, but like New York has like 50 plus. So it's like, excuse me, it's how can we, our goal is to be able to have every neighborhood there should be one, right? So give the kids an opportunity, like you said, kids are out there playing, but also families or communities to be able to get together and play soccer and just be able to like have that community feel.
Yeah, it's a topic that hits home. It hits us hard because that's something that we've talked about a lot on the podcast, off the podcast. Austin is a soccer city, right? But giving those spaces so that people can come together and play in an environment where right now the sun is setting at 5:30.
It's tough.
You need lights.
Yes.
You need a pitch. You need somewhere. You need that space. And it's good to hear that 4ATX is like taking initiative and doing these things for us. And I hope to see it more and more.
Yeah. And the very first one in Dove Spring, unfortunately, doesn't have lights, but it was like the first one.
Right.
Second one, Woolridge, has lights. And then the third one, I think, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's working with the partnership that will have like Wi-Fi. So, like kids who come hang out, if they want to be on Wi-Fi or they want to do their homework, whatever they want to do. But it's like we want to have these places where kids could play soccer because we believe that the power of soccer, with soccer, you can do a lot, and so no kid should be limited. Whether it's financially or location, like every kid should be able to play soccer.
And the thing is, like, soccer is a street sport.
Exactly.
I mean, if you look at Sudamerica, even Mexico, se juegan fútbol rápido, like right in front of my grandma's house. They redid the it was El Llano, and they turned it into like a similar hub, like the one you have, because, dude, it's a street sport. And if you really, like, you were talking about this several times, if we want Austin to be a soccer city, it can't just be because we have a team.
Yeah.
It has to be in a community.
That's where it starts.
Exactly.
That's where it starts, and that grows into something bigger.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Can you talk to us a little about how Verde Leaders falls within that 4ATX Foundation?
Yeah. And so that's, like Caitlin and the team, they do a lot, right, with 4ATX Foundation. And I've been lucky enough to be able to help in a lot of those projects. But my main focus is the future program of 4ATX Foundation, which is Verde Leaders. And so it's a positive youth development program where we help kids develop their skills, mainly low-income kids in Austin communities, and we help them develop their soccer skills, but also their off-the-pitch skills as well. So we use different practices. We blend soccer with restorative practices, with mindfulness, which is these other awesome strategies for them to be able to, yes, develop their soccer skills, but develop themselves as human, right? Which everyone, like, we mention how, not every kid, unfortunately, can make it pro, but every kid is going to go, all our kids are going to be leaders in the community at some point, whether they're working for their family, whether they're going to trade school, whether they're, going to a 4-year college, they're going to be the future leaders. So how can we help develop those soft skills and have them have that toolkit for them to be successful in life?
What has been the most challenging part from when this concept of 4ATX and Los Verdes Leaders, like when it first started to now, what has been the one thing you would say, man, we struggled with this, like what do you recall any moments?
Well, I think so. Caitlin is the founder of the program. She's the VP of Community Impact now, but she started the program, I want to say back in 2018. Might have been late 2017, I think the fall maybe. And I joined that summer, and I remember those summers where it was like we would have community days where, we're happy if we had 25 kids out there, right? Now, compared to our last community day, which we had 2 weeks ago, we had to split it. So we had to split 6th grade, which we had like 50 kids come out. 7th and 8th were together, and that was like another 50. And then we had high school, which is another like 30. So it is tough when you're, I think it's a blessing to be able to have these many kids and just being able to grow so fast. But also it does have its complications because, with COVID or just, having to go virtual and then having to shift, it has like we haven't had like a steady curriculum. We haven't had a steady, like, this is what we did last year. We can do the exact same, right? So it has been, it is good that we're growing, and now with the platform like 4ATX Foundation and Austin FC, we are able to serve more kids, but it's also like going from, having a session with 15 kids to having a session with 50 kids. Mm-hmm. It has been, we have work to do because we want to be able to serve all of Austin. So we want to be at, 1,000, 2,000 kids.
Everywhere you can.
Exactly. But it's also like we know that it's important to we don't want to just throw any coach out there, right? We want to have quality work. And so being able to have an awesome director like Jordan Johnson, she's been able to, she always takes a step back and she's like, okay, like, yes, we want to be in 10 schools by next spring, but we can stick at 6 and we can have quality work rather than just, be at 10.
The madrazo.
Jordan Johnson.
She balances me out a lot.
She's an awesome woman, dude. Like I really enjoyed getting to know her and Caitlin and I volunteered around 2018, 2019. So it was upper 90. It wasn't as big as it is now, but just having those moments to kind of speak with them and getting to see a little bit of what they're dealing with and how they've helped us grow has been pretty inspiring. Just knowing that that it's something that kind of spurred out of their studies and at their universities, and eventually became a real project, not just a theoretical thing.
Yeah.
They made it happen here in Austin. It's a beautiful thing.
Correct me if I'm recalling, because I read some of the article that you sent us, and one of them was for Los Verde Leaders. Which person was the one that wrote in, I would say, I don't know if it was a school project in the university, and saying how soccer benefits every single aspect?
Yeah, so Caitlin and Jordan met at Harvard.
Okay.
And so that's where the idea
Harvard
started. Yeah.
Harvard.
The Harvard University.
Órale.
Yeah. And so
Pepe, hold on, let me.
hey, I work with them every day, and I'm like, man, hey, all that hard work in elementary school is paying out, right? Fighting Chem was the Chem University guy. Yeah.
El Sonny dice a huevo.
Yeah. No, Sonny has my back. I appreciate it. I'll get Sonny and Willie, and we'll take them on. But yeah, so Caitlin is originally from Austin. So she grew up in Austin, and she went away for school, and she knew, she did her research. That's why it'd be great for you to have her, because she can tell you a little bit more about it. But she did her research, and that was her project. And she was like, okay, back in Austin, kids, a certain amount of percentage of kids don't have that after school, furthering their education, right? Because we know in school the education is important, but what they do after school is just as important, right? And so she did her research, and she met with Jordan, and Jordan was actually, at this point, it was, her boyfriend, but now they recently got married, but he was here at UT, and so she was like, hey, if you're willing to help me out, I'm going back to Austin, and I'm starting at a pilot school, and so, Jordan joined her as well, and they just kicked it off, and like I said, I don't know if it was, and they're going to kill me for this, I don't know if it was fall of 2017 or I think it was fall of 2017, because I joined in 2018. But they basically took on one school, and they ran it, upper 90. And they were grinding. Jordan had another full-time job. Caitlin was running this. And it was them two running this program at EA Prep with 40 kids.
That's
so
crazy. I can't imagine that. Starting something from scratch.
Hombre, yo apenas si puedo con mi vida. 40 kids.
No.
Shout out to Jordan and Caitlin.
And so we still talk about this day. And then I quickly joined the team that following year, and I was able to see it. And I was just so I remember having, and it goes back to how I met Sonny. So after college, I dealt with a little bit of injuries in college, and I was like, okay, I still had in my back of my head, I want to play professional soccer. But I moved back to Austin, my degree, not knowing what I wanted to do. And degree in sports management, I was like, there's no professional team in Austin. I don't know what I want to do, but I want to work in sports. And came back, and I was doing I was still training with Sonny, and I was doing private training, trying to make some money, coaching down at Soccer Zone. And then, I just the dream just went further and further, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. And my dad also told me, he's like, hey, you need a full-time job.
You need to pivot.
Yeah, you need to pivot. They always supported me from day one to the last conversation I had with my dad, but they were like, hey, I think it's time to move on, right? And so for the next 4 or 6 months, I worked at a law firm, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, but I was done with soccer. I was like, you know what, done. I just didn't want to watch soccer.
What were you doing at the law firm? What was your position?
I was a legal assistant, but I was in the program to be a paralegal.
Stop.
And so I was thinking about going to Texas State and becoming a paralegal. And
you could have done the UT accelerated program, because my wife did that in 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I didn't do it, because it's tough work for me. But like I said, my dad was he pushed me in a corner. He was like, hey, you figure out whatever you want to do, right? Or what you want to do. And so they were I was looking to go through a paralegal, and I was like, man, is this it?
Oh, Pepe, ¿quieres la última?
Oh, yeah.
Como invitado. Yo lo que caiga. I'm not picky.
The Pop Squad. No, I like this can. And so I was just done. I hadn't been playing soccer for a while, and then I finally reached out to Sonny, and I'm like, all right, Sonny, like, I miss playing. Like, are there any opportunities or anything that you could think of that I can do? Mm-hmm. And he was like, at this point, he was running. It was like every first Saturday or Sunday of the month, he was going down to Buda at a church, and was like, kids with disabilities would do like a soccer practice, basically. Mm-hmm. And so he wasn't able to make it that weekend. And so I told him, I was like, I'll cover for you. And Caitlin actually, and I didn't know Caitlin at this point, Caitlin had the equipment. So I met Caitlin at the parking lot at the mall, the Barton Creek. Yeah. Met her there, and I was like, hey, Caitlin, nice to meet you. Like, I'm just here for the equipment. I was going to use it the next day. Not knowing who she was, not knowing what she was doing, anything. Went out to that church down in Buda, and again, it like sparked up like my love for soccer, right? You have kids. All I had to do was like set ladders, speed ladders, have a few soccer balls. It was like 10 kids. They all came with their physical therapist, and just saw how these kids had a smile on their face playing soccer, like kicking the ball in the goals, and just like, it just felt good. And I was like, from there, I was like, man, like, okay, I want to get involved, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this is like, again, going back to like, like what my purpose is, or what I think that I should be doing. And so as soon as I finished that, I was like, hey, Sonny, like, is there anything else like that, of, like, because this was like once a month, and I was like, Sonny, is there anything else that I can do? Is there anything else that you've heard of, or anything you have going on? And he's like, that lady that you met at the parking lot, she just started a nonprofit in East Austin and might need help. And so I'm like, okay, like, connect me with her or whatever. Connected with her, got on the phone with her. 2-hour conversation, easily. Like, we're just like, this is what her goals were, and I was listening, and I was like, this is what I see. This is, because, like, even though I missed out of being in Austin for 4 years, like, I knew my experience, and I knew what Austin kind of dealt with, at least like in the East Austin. And, a lot of, like I said, I played for Lone Star, so I would go out to West Austin or North Austin, and I would go to practice, and I'm like the only Mexican kid, right? And it's like, how, like, something is going on. And so really believed in her vision and her values and everything that she had going on. And so that summer I actually interned for them first, and then head coach, and then luckily enough where I am now as a program coordinanator.
That's a beautiful story, man.
Damn, dude. I did. So Sonny never told us about like what you covering him for that weekend, and then he was training kids with disabilities to play soccer.
Yeah, man. The many facets of Sonny. Something about that.
Sonny's like el callado, pero
hey, man, he's like the soccer patron of Austin. Like, he should be on a candle, bro. Like,
he should be. I told him, we call him the living legend, and he was like, nah, I'm just living.
Yeah. And that's one thing. So Caitlin and Sonny, like I said, for the first game, I was able to go. Me and Caitlin went up to the palco, where he was doing the commentary.
That's right. Yeah.
We took a picture, and we're like, man, like, we just looked around. It's like, this has like full circle of, and those are people that, again, appreciate what they did for me, both professionally, but still, like, I could call up Sonny right now, I could call up Caitlin, and they're just there for me, right? Mm-hmm. And so Sonny is just full of stories, and he very humble guy. They're both very, very humble, and yeah, just great humans in general. Like, even, Caitlin's a badass on the soccer field. Sonny, we obviously know what he does on the soccer field, but as humans, they're just,
they're
some
just
of the best.
that much better.
Yeah, we just had lunch with Sonny this past Friday.
Yeah.
So by the time this episode released, probably gonna be sometime either before or after Thanksgiving. But
I stayed in Sonny's. So yeah, I stayed in Sonny's apartment in Cancun, and he was able to send me out of Mexico, and just like while he was playing, and he's just, like I said, what he's done for the soccer community has been awesome. So,
and it's like he's going, like, and we were talking about that earlier, how when you make it, you go back and you support people, and what he's doing it's awesome. Just that simple call, that simple meeting up at the parking lot with Caitlin.
Yeah,
how that sparked what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And it's just, I believe God puts us in a place a lot of times where it's at the, the right place at the right time. And Pero si tú tienes las ganas, he's gonna show up, and it's all about you following up, and you followed up with that. Like, it wasn't just like, yeah, well, we'll stay in touch. Like, no, let's, okay, I want to do this. That brought passion back of, soccer for you and your purpose, and how it turned out to be something that you're creating with Caitlin and Jordan, and how you're impacting Austin, because it's not a trend. Soccer is not a trend. Soccer is a life. Soccer is, something that we live, we breathe, we play. We cry when our teams lose, or we are joyful when our teams win, and how you're bringing that to them, in front of them, creating all these hubs. A lot of the times, like, we take that for granted because we focus on, like, Austin FC has a team now. Everything's about the players. No, yes, the players are there, the team is there, but everything behind it, all the work to get there, you're part of that. Yeah. And how you were saying, how you took that picture with Tony when he just went, while he was broadcasting, and it came back to circles. It's like, dude, it's just hustle, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. I had no idea that Sunday was that connect between you and Caitlin. That's a wonderful story. And it also gets me thinking of the soccer community in Austin. It's so powerful. And the way I found out about Verde Leaders is from a social media post of one of my from my wife's coworker at the time. She posted this like practice that they were doing and this upper 90 activity. And I'm like, I reached out to her and said, "Hey, Becca, what's going on? Like, what is this?" Oh, she told me about what Upper 90 does for the community. And I was like, dude, that sounds awesome. I'd love to be a part of that. And easily, like, within a week, I did the paperwork. I was there. I was volunteering. Didn't know what to expect. And it totally blew my mind. Like, at the time, it kind of goes back to what you said. The kids learn a lot from you, but what you get out of it, what you learn from the kids is equally or even greater. Yeah. Because at the time, I was going through a very difficult career path, difficult project at the time. So a lot of times I would go home grumpy, kind of mad, kind of like, taking it out on the people we love, just because we're having a bad time at work or in life. And I needed some type of different outlet, some type of – and Upper 90 at the time was the perfect opportunity to be part of something greater than me and teach me that – just kind of take me back. Like you said, you really related to those kids having a similar background. I felt the same way. And just seeing soccer from a different perspective, I'd never seen an organization or never been part of something that it wasn't soccer. It was greater than that. It was like life skills. And some of the things, correct me if I'm wrong, some of the core values like, inclusion, authenticity, believe mindfulness, those things are some things that I didn't grow up talking about. Yeah. And just having that, all right, we're going to play soccer, but hold up, we're going to wait for like 10 minutes and just, sit around in a circle, and everyone's going to have an opportunity to speak about what's on their mind, what they're going through, and these values we want to instill in everyone. Yeah. To me, that was kind of mind-blowing and important and just a special thing. And seeing how you were a part of that, seeing how Caitlin was a part of that, not just leading it from the top, coming down to these circles and speaking from a perspective of I'm here and I'm talking to you as a human being to a 15, 14-year-old kid. Yeah. That is like that is worth so much. And I think that's the biggest reason that the kids really respect y'all and look up to y'all and try to gain some of those skills, the soft skills that you spoke about.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even for myself, like it took me till after I graduated from Campbell that I was like, okay, like a lot of my friends that I play soccer with, like, are still my friends. I feel comfortable talking around other people because soccer, like, I've just been able to communicate, whether it's, like before a game, after a game, during a game. There's just so many skills that soccer gave me, and so much that soccer, like the power of soccer is just like huge. And I didn't think about it like that until I met Caitlin and Jordan there. And then I started thinking, and I remember having like a moment to myself, and I was like, man, like soccer has done all of this for me, but we don't really like talk about it like that. Yeah. And another thing, like just thinking about like you were talking about team circle. So so in the middle of the practice, we sit down and we have starts very basic. So week 1, week 2, you know, let's say I'm facilitating, I have the talking piece soccer ball, and the first question is like, what's your name and who's your favorite soccer team? What's your favorite player? You know, stuff like that. So it gets people talking. But then by like week 5, week 6, you're like saying, oh, like, you know, who's someone dead or alive that you miss and why? You know, like, so it gets a little bit deeper and you start talking about different values. Like you mentioned that kids don't really get to talk about. If you think about and even for me as growing up, like I would wake up, my dad's already at work. My mom might be at work as well. I go to school. One teacher might talk to me, like ask me how I'm doing. If that, they're usually asking, hey, what, you know, they're asking me something about school related. I go to lunch, the lunch lady, what do you want to eat? I go to any class, whatever it is. No one's asking me how I'm doing. I get home, my dad's still not home. My mom is maybe, you know, making food, you know, taking care of my sister, whatever it is. So I went a whole day without someone asking me, hey, how are you doing? Hey, what's going on in your life? How do you feel, or whatever it is? And so giving these kids the opportunity to talk to them. And again, not only talk, but also being able to listen. And that's also, so Team Circle, at first, it was hard for me because it was like, okay, when you're on the field, it's competitive, right? Like I grew up in competitive field, competitive environment. So there's no time for that.
It's kind of counterintuitive to the competition.
Exactly.
Right.
But again, then I spent four years with some of my teammates and I don't know anything about them. I don't know.
You haven't got to those deep combos.
I haven't. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know who this guy I'm playing forward with. I don't know who his favorite player is. I don't know who his favorite team is because get on the field in this business, which I understand. Like, you know, then the coach has his job. And so we all have our roles that we have to play. But like, it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah. And so now that I think about it, it's like being able to learn, like what's important for us is every kid, like, you know, for them to be able to learn more about their teammates and for us to have these conversations and to have an open space. And you get your opportunity to talk, and then you also learn how to listen, right, which is really important. And just to add on that, something the foundation is doing, Jordan's doing a lot of work with it. Kaylin's also involved. We're doing Team Circle now with the Academy, with Austin FC Academy. Mm-hmm. So you're getting 12, 13, 14-year-olds doing, and these are kids, obviously it's a different level of soccer, mm-hmm, but what Verde Leaders is doing as far as Team Circle and mindfulness, now the highest,
it's translating up to the highest
exactly
level of competition.
And I was part of the last year when we were able to do that for the first time around. And these kids, I mean, they're kids. At the end of the day, they're kids. And even though their soccer level is up here, they're still kids and they still deal with a lot. And they were like, those team circles like are deep, and they're like, these kids, like every kid, you know, was open to the experience. And it was great for the Austin FC Academy coaches and Tyson and all of these high-end people to think about it, because they understand that, yeah, ideally all those kids would go pro, but not all of them will. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, they're all going to be leaders of the community, and they're all going to be humans, and we want to instill that as a culture in Austin FC, ATX Foundation, all of that, the umbrella. And so it's awesome to be able to see it with the academy as well.
That's awesome, dude. Correct me if I'm wrong. I remember learning that community circle kind of stems from some indigenous practices that I think maybe Jordan kind of brought to the table.
Yeah. So Jordan, obviously, she is great at, you know, her work, and she was able to. When I first joined, when it was upper 90, when I first joined her, it was I brought more of the soccer aspect, and she brought more of the team circle and the restorative practices. So I learned a lot from her, and still to this day I'm learning a lot from her. But yeah, it comes from, there's a lot of history to it, and there's a lot of just research, and it's very hard to explain because it's a lot to explain. But basically, the research has been done that rather than, hey, you did this crime, or you know, in the school you did this, let me suspend you. no, let's have a conversation. I'll let you share what your view was. Let's talk about this and let's come with the solution rather than y'all are both suspended. Now these kids are suspended. They could get in any trouble. There's no one at home. Like it's like it could just lead to further damage. And so we believe that having the space, and we've had issues in schools, or you have these conflicts, but it's like, let's talk about it. Let's get to the root of this, right? Let's figure out what the root of the issue is, and let's have a conversation, rather than just punish.
Have you felt like in the kids that you work with, you've seen a difference from the beginning when they come into the program and now how they interact and when they talk?
Yeah, well, one of my favorite things, and you mentioned mindfulness. So mindfulness is basically different exercises that help you control your emotions, and it all comes with like breathing exercises. So Ronaldo being my favorite player, I always tell kids, so what does Ronaldo do before a free kick or before a penalty kick? Why did like that's just him controlling, right? It's controlling his body and controlling his mind. And so I have noticed, I mean, even I use it, but kids who, when we first got them, they were, they would spark. Like some guy like accidentally fouled him, like ready to fight, right? Like, I'm pissed.
Yeah.
And sometimes it leads from, they failed a test, so now they're mad at each other. They're coming to practice and they take it out on someone else.
Yeah.
But instead of thinking about that way, now it's like, all right, so we do mindfulness at every practice. Now let's take a second, control your emotions. And if you're still upset, let's have the conversation. But and I think it's important on kids, but also like on us, right? Sometimes we react and we get mad, and it's like, then we regret it and we're like, oh man, I should have reacted that way. But taking a second to control your body, control your emotion, control your breathing, usually for the most part has a positive.
Dude, and
We could definitely share that with a lot of our friends.
I know, right? I know. It's no, because the reason I was asking that is because, like the part of breathing, the part of taking a second to calm down and not say something stupid. Like I have a hard time with that. My wife can attest, and it's like, you're right. Like Richie needs to go there and get learn more about that breathing part. But it's dude. I mean, sometimes, man, like just having that 5 seconds to, like you said, mindfulness. To, like when you're young, to think about that and realize how important that is, because when you get older, you're gonna be facing with real world scenarios. You're gonna be facing with a lot of times you're not gonna have enough money to pay for the bill, or something happened that was out of your control, and instead of relying on like say for example we drink, we already know like, hey, at the end of the day we're gonna be responsible tomorrow, and after a couple of beers, maybe 5, maybe 6, but but the one thing is, it's so crucial how the mindfulness part is important as men, especially because if you look at it, going back to machismo, going back to us as Hispanics and Mexicans, we didn't grow up with that. We didn't grow up with taking care of our breathe and calm down, and maybe other places they have done it and they've seen the results and how important it is to be in a place like, say, when you feel like you're having a really bad day, you can communicate with people like, hey, you know what, just give me a good 30 minutes to go take a nap or go lay down and relax, so I can take that away from it. Because there was something about like in business there, I can't remember if it was a study or if it was an actual documentary that I listened to, but they were saying how, like during the 2008 the recession that we had, how a lot of people were reacting, and they were saying one thing that we really didn't think about is just whenever there's something wrong at work, like let's say for example you did a transaction like in accounting, you entered something incorrectly, instead of making it 5,000, you made it 500,000 by mistake.
Yeah.
That's bad, and you post it on an account and it shows in the report, and you're like, hey, why are the souls that high? But then you go back like, oh man, that's actually only 5,000.
Yeah.
But in that mindset of, you realize you did something wrong, they say it takes about 30 minutes to fade away from that and get your mind right. And they were teaching people how to, like breathing exercises to, hey, when you're posting a transaction that's wrong, okay, take your time, get out of that computer, breathe, and then come back and work.
Yeah.
And how that made a huge difference on the accounting world, because now, like, even in the tech industry, you see people, they have hubs where they go take naps and they can sit back and relax, because they've understood how important that is to not be like oppressing people and bringing people, like giving people crap for doing something wrong. And in a household, we have that part where we didn't grow up with that, and we have to learn how to appreciate that fact of mindfulness is the key to not doing something crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, as you get older with a teenager, that that it's growing up with friends that don't have the same mindset as you have, how that mindfulness part can be huge and detrimental for your future.
Yeah, for sure. And then I remember a few months ago, this was going back to Chicharito, with, him knowing, like, being vulnerable and everything. I remember him on an interview saying, like, they asked him, like, all right, so what's your, like, you've changed, like, obviously your mindset, and you changed this and that. And one of the things he mentioned was mindfulness. And he's like, I am doing mindfulness, I'm doing meditation. I'm like, I understand the power of the brain. And for me to be able to control all of this, and exactly, like, I'm sure his parents didn't teach him. He had to learn it, and he learned it, now him being early 30s. But if we could put in the young generation, like, hey, like, this goes wrong or this happens, like, take 30 minutes, take 10 minutes, take 30 seconds, take a deep breath, and then let's see what we can actually do. And so that's something that like I said, I've learned from this program, and something that, driving down I-35 when someone cuts me off, hey,
you gotta get it.
I take a second, yeah.
No, for sure. Looking at the for ATX Foundation mission, using the power of soccer to help communities thrive physically, socially, and emotionally. Definitely all those practices fall into place. And with Verde Leaders, trying to create the next generation of leaders in soccer and through positive youth development, like, you guys are doing a great job at that. And I wish you and the organization continue success. And I think I can speak for Richie and I and David, like, if there's ever a way that we can help out, whether it's like volunteering or give it some time or even some shout outs, we're happy to do that, man. So
yeah, no, for sure. And whenever you guys want to come on the field and just that Euros are always welcome. And whether it's Verde Leaders or there's always a lot of opportunities. And so, whenever
I feel like you guys are having more and more events now.
More and more events, and we want to continue to grow. And
that's awesome.
Being on year 4 now, hopefully, sky's the limit. So hopefully continue to be a big part of this community.
Cool, man.
With everything that you have going on, what do you do to remain sane?
Hey, that's a great question. No, and that's some different conversations I've had with, whether it's my parents or my girlfriend. Like, sometimes, like, a practice is tough, and I go home, to my girlfriend, which let's say she's had an amazing day, and so it's like, I told her, I was like, hey, sometimes I do have to take a minute just to be able to, like, I had a tough practice, something didn't go well, and so being able to, I think she understands now, like, hey, like, sometimes it's just taking a minute. Sometimes, a lot of the times, it's just, I grab my dog Ross and we just go walk around a little bit, and I come back and it's like, okay, like, like, I'm ready to talk about it, or I'm ready to, just, like, be able to, like, be at ease. But yeah, I think that's what I do the most. Just walks with my dog, or workout, or just being able to, because like, we just finished our 10-week season, and we tell all the coaches, like, hey, you've put in a lot of work all 10 weeks, and even before, because we do trainings and everything. Mm-hmm. So now enjoy these next few weeks off. Some of them are students, some of them have full-time jobs, some of them, have part-time jobs, but it's like, take the time, like, to appreciate all the work that you did for these kids. And, whether it's physically or emotionally, or take the break off, enjoy the holidays, and then so in February when we come again, like let's go ahead and come back stronger and do it again.
Hard. That's awesome, man.
So it's every 10 weeks that you guys do a season?
So we do. So we have during the school year we go from August to November.
Okay.
It's 10 weeks, and then in the spring we go from late February to like May. We used to do like 12, 13-hour weeks, but sometimes it would get it would be a conflict with their high school team or their middle school team, or daylight savings sometimes would kill us too. So we shorten it up a little bit, but we also do programming like during the winter break. We'll probably do like we call it retas. It's like you were saying earlier, like in the streets you just play soccer and you play retas. So we do casual community pickup during the breaks, and then in the summer we also usually have some type of programming. So we try to be there just year round for the kids.
Yeah, because a lot of times I feel like there's programs that are in between, like in school year, but during the summer, there's nothing, and that's where soccer is like a year-round thing.
Yeah, it has a lifetime. It has a whole cycle. You want to keep it going, but there's all these things that you got to deal with. So before we get into discussion and debate topics, I really wanted to give us a chance. Oh man,
we're gonna get
take.
It's going so good. It's going so good.
Take a time out. Like kind of let that resonate. Have that good feelings because we're about to get back and get in the hot seat. Discussion and debate topics, gentlemen. All right, we've gotten to the meat and potatoes of the conversation. Now that we all got a little bit fond of each other, we got loving. We felt that vibe. Now we can have that tough love between each other. All right. So we're gonna go into rivalidades.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I feel that rivalidades are important in life and in sports because they push you. They push you to be great. They push you to go further than you would have ever gone. So we spoke about one a little bit earlier, America Chivas. We have a couple of affiliations here. I'm a Chivas fan. Pepe grew up a Chivas fan after the Paleta Man.
Yeah, after that.
Richie grew up an Americanista.
Well.
And we've had some epic battles. Right now, the state of affairs for Chivas is not the greatest, but America is doing well. They're doing their thing, and I hope to have the rivalidades of the olden days when they were both kind of battling for the top, but it's not what we're experiencing nowadays. I want to know your thoughts on the current state of affairs on that. I know you guys are pretty not as invested, but just wanted to hear what you guys thought.
Dale, Pepe.
Yeah, so I mean, growing up, I think those times where it was Cuauhtémoc and you had Omar Bravo and you had Ramoncito, like I think that whole, I don't know if it was 5, 7, 8 years. I definitely miss those times. I think that now I just think the whole Federación has struggled a little bit with los extranjeros, and I think that has been the hot debate with Chivas. Should they have foreigners? Should they not? And I think that's affected them a little bit. And personally, I think that has drawn me away a little bit from the league and also from this. And I think now you see like teams like, Tigres and America playing these big games, or you have Rayados as well playing these big games because they are able to have these big time stars. And I think, nothing against Chivas, but I think their management, even before Vergara was there, I think when Vergara was there, I think he struggled a little bit with the financially and then also wanting his team to perform well. Mm-hmm. And so as I'm still Chivista, but I do see, I love the times where they would go to the Fuerzas Básicas and then they would, you had like, whether it's a few starters or their bench was Fuerzas Básicas, and they were actually developing players. Which again, it goes back to the extranjeros. Like, you can have the best 18-year-old Mexican who plays for Chivas or plays for, La Selección or whatever, the U20. But he's playing behind Gignac or El Dientes. Like, it's hard for the coach to be able to trust an 18-year-old Mexican over a 30-year-old French national team, Euro champion. So I think it struggled. I think that whole structure has struggled, and even you were mentioning the ascenso is gone, and now you have like the liguilla that it's more than 8 teams, and they play. I just think that they've gone, not to get too political, but I think the money has influenced a little bit in the Mexican league, and so that's my take on that.
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar state of mind regarding Chivas, dude. Um, it's a lot of the times whenever they offer a player to Chivas, the price for them to buy it is like crazy, crazy.
It's like Austin house market.
Right, and a lot of it makes the players sometimes feel like aburguesados,
Yeah.
I really don't know what they do when it comes to the academy wise, but donde quieres ganar campeonatos is with the academy, with your team, and America has had that where when they can bring the best players they can buy, but they don't have the passion like the guys from Fuerzas Básicas.
Yeah.
And Chivas needs to capitalize on the talent in Mexico, especially since they can only be limited to getting players from Mexico, or now that they're born in America, dual citizenship, they can play there. But not until like they change anything where they can get extranjeros, they literally have to capitalize on every single aspect and build their own foundation. And for me, I want to see Chivas and America going at it like back in the days with new generations, because there's potential in Mexico.
Yeah.
But you just gotta, there's so much bureaucracy in there that draws people away from it too. Like what happened with El Descenso and everything else that, what's going on. We see the Mexican players doing very good, in the U15, 16, 17, 20. But once they get to La Mayor, not a lot of them make it. That's the lost generations.
Yeah, well, and then it goes back to, like you have those generations from the U17 who won it. It was back to back, right?
In 2005 and 11.
Yeah, and so, but then they go back to their clubs and they are 17, 18 years of age and they're competing against an extranjero, and so a coach, I've never been a coach like that, but it's like I'm going to play the more experienced foreigner over him. And it affects it because I remember reading an article where Germany, after one of the World Cups, I forgot, they struggled and they were like, as a national team and as a federation, like they were like, hey, like we're planning for the next 4 or 5, like whatever years. And so they gave those opportunities to all these international players that are playing at the top level now when they were 16, 17, 18 years of age, because they knew that they had the bigger mission. But Mexico, again, they always just kind of struggle a little bit, and it holds the development of the player.
It's really hard. I think certain organizations, certain countries are a little bit better in the collective, thinking about success as a whole, and not as of an individual or organizational thing. Mm-hmm. They're not thinking clubs, they're thinking national level. And I think it's something that is not only in sports, it can get translated into different things. For example, the pandemic, the way we've dealt with COVID. That's kind of going out of pocket, but what I'm trying to get at is like perhaps some of these decisions that have been made in the Mexican Federation have been, well, we know they've been driven by interests, by money. And unfortunately, that doesn't help the new generations of soccer succeed. And it kind of puts them in a difficult position where you may have achieved success, and you said in the younger stages of national competition, but once you hit that cap where you're in las mayores, no vas a jugar minutos, no vas a ser titular, no vas a tener oportunidad. I also think that the Mexican League has a lot of money, and in a way it makes it really comfortable for players to stay rather than choosing to have a more difficult time elsewhere in el extranjero, competing day in and day out in these difficult leagues, in German leagues, in Spanish leagues, and in English leagues. And it makes it difficult for the nation to transcend and kind of move further. And we're starting to see that. We're starting to see those impacts in national soccer, I think.
There's one thing that I was looking at. Like, let's say there's a lot of players in the U.S. that they went straight to Europe, and they went through the process of going in through the academy and debuting. But they have the money to go there and travel. They come back home and they can go to back to college and get a good job with their career. But in Mexico, that's not our mindset. Our mindset is like, nos quedamos aquí y a ver cómo nos va.
Yeah, and that, I was just on the phone with one of my friends that he was giving me crap about the 2-0 and
of course,
and so
of course, I can't wait to get into that.
Yeah,
I can't wait to get into that.
And this is me being just salty and whatever, but it's a great point. Like, USA is looking great right now, but how many of those players are actually? And I hate using this excuse now because it's always been the same, but now we're noticing because they're better. Mm-hmm. But a lot of those players aren't born in the United States. Mm-hmm. They're one of their parents was born in California, New York, and so they have a bigger pool of players to get, which it's not their fault. They're using it the right way, but yeah, you're not gonna have. It's very rare for us to be able to be like, un Mexicano that is now playing in Europe, that he grew up in this academy up in one of the, whether it's the English or the German league or whatever, and they can choose Mexico to play, right? And some of these national team players from USA, like they are like at a young age, they go over there and they're becoming these pros, and then they can choose USA as their national team. And so that's a whole different conversation, but I think they are. That's why right now they're just kind of taking off.
I think we should jump into it, man. I think we should jump straight into it. I've been wanting to talk about this ever since I saw the game Friday. We were actually camping at Lake Whitney, and I was with David Chaparro and his lady Hannah and Ryan and my wife Madison. So we were just like camping, bonfire, and they're thinking we're just gonna do s'mores and stuff. And I'm like, hey, I got my iPad. I'm about to put this game on, and our ladies were like, "What
the hell?"
we can't. Like, nah, this is like a qualifying.
Yeah, it's like
a game that matters. Like, we have to watch this. So we watched it. Much to our disappointment, David actually was pulling for Mexico too, as well. And just looking at that game, man, and seeing all the drama behind it, I started looking at some of the comentarios que salieron de Memo Ochoa, and it made me think, like, one of the things he said is, México es el espejo en el que Estados Unidos quiere verse. When you make those types of declarations before the game, you're setting yourself up. You not only give the other team motivation to come out and, like, play harder, but it just sets you up in a bad spot. And the game, Mexico ended up losing 2-0, to which Pulisic scored, I believe, the first goal, and he took the shirt off, and it was like man in the mirror.
Yeah, and they were booing Ochoa the whole time because he came out with those comments, and then Berhalter came out and said, "Hey, like, they need to put a little bit more respect. Like, they'll get our respect after the next match." And it's like, I think it made it. Hey, as an Americanista, I don't know how you feel.
No,
about it,
I think Ochoa, a lot of the times he wants to say things that, okay, you want realism, I'll give you realism. Yeah. Like Mexico, they want to be this realistas. No, vamos a ser realistas y aquí está la sopa y aquí es donde comemos las carnitas. Pero whenever it comes up to, like, okay, how can we take whatever, like, say, for example, the U.S., I'm pretty sure in the next couple of years, they're going to surpass us. I mean, it's already, I can see it. Pero es porque México se ha dejado.
Yeah.
And what Ochoa is saying, like, we are becoming little by little, we stopped looking at South America a long time ago. And we saw more of what the U.S. is doing with soccer, and we want to mirror that. And Ochoa is the one that puts it out like, hey, we're ourselves. We're the ones that are putting ourselves. We're like even after a game against. I can't remember, it was Chile when they lost 7-0.
Oh, yeah.
But he said,
Copa América.
La Copa América, he said, en realidad somos una elección que no ha ganado nada. Like, we have not won anything besides Confederaciones and 2 U17s and oro en los Olímpicos. But we don't ever come out of that conversation when we talk about Mexican soccer for the national team or the, the youth teams. We just go back to those 4 or 5 titles that we won. We never go back beyond, okay, this is what we're going to do now. We take for granted the Copa de Oro, thinking we're going to win it, and we don't win it because the U.S. is, keep rising up. So I think when Memo was saying, like, no, we're actually becoming, instead of, we have taken the focus away from soccer for so long.
Yeah.
And it's more about business. And a lot of the players in Mexico, they're so comfortable. I mean, you can even see it after they lose. For me, I'm budgeting, we're going to lose to the U.S. and Canada away. That's going to be a given. Now, if they lose to the U.S. and Canada at home, that's when the worry comes.
Yeah, so that was my next point because a lot of friends, obviously, they were like, I'm very passionate when it comes.
Pepe's a very passionate guy.
I'm very passionate. So, I don't like doing it. I had to actually back away from, social media. I would get into it once in a while, like here and there. But for the last, year or two, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get, when I have conversations with friends, let's talk about it and I'll give you my peace of mind. But a lot of people were like, hey, dos a cero, this and that. And I was like, I think, like you said, I think Mexico is at a point where, when we're playing away, like USA, them playing home, they should beat us. Mm-hmm. Not saying like they should beat, but it's like they should bring the game to us, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you see, I know it's kind of apples and oranges, but when you see like a team, like in the NBA, when you play 7 games, the home team has to that's like
you gotta show up.
You have to show up.
Yeah.
You have to show up. Yeah, sometimes the visiting team gets lucky and outplays you, mm-hmm. But I think we're at a point where USA should expect to win when they play in American soil. Mm-hmm. Canada, I still feel like that lost this. It was just tough, the conditions and tough, everything.
Yeah, I
still think Mexico should beat Canada, but I do think USA should now I'm happy with Mexico winning against USA in El Azteca, mm-hmm. And if we can get a point out of American soil, mm-hmm. when we're playing USA here, I'm fine with that. It's no longer we should get all 6 points. Mm-hmm. I think that 3 points, us home, and getting an empate is fine. But if you lose, okay. But I do think that they are catching up, and they are they're playing. I think playing with the ball tactically. Mm-hmm. I think the Mexican players are still better, but you can't deny that their athleticism,
the physical part, that's the one that's the key.
And I think this last game mentally.
Oh yeah.
Their mentality was peak.
I think they wanted it, and Mexico came out flat. And then mm-hmm. Mexico was just like, I just want to get out of this cold. And what was funny and not funny is that they wanted to get out of the cold, but they went to Canada, which was freezing. And they're like, now they're like, all right, we lost. Now we have to play up a little bit. But once that first goal came, it was like back to their old ways.
Yeah. But it's just, I'm always going to be a fan of, it's up to you. At the end of the day, it's up to you, And it's, whenever you do, like Mexico, it's up to Mexico. Like, it's up to the federation. It's up to who's in charge. I do think Tata Martino should deviate from banning players because there's already 4 or 5 that are banned. And then next time you do a little misstep for not going, pero también los jugadores mexicanos, you have to take responsibility for their actions too. I just feel like Mexico, talent-wise, we're always gonna be there, but right here, that's when we're still super screwed.
Yeah,
and that goes from the team, that goes from the players, from the coaches, from the media, from the fan itself. Because right now, okay, we lost 2 games. We're still third place.
And that's what people don't get.
Yeah,
People are acting like we're like in
Yeah.
eighth place.
Yeah, like if we were last place, okay, fine. You know what? But for me, it's like I was budgeting 2 losses in this qualifiers:
Yeah.
the U.S. here and Canada. In Canada, because it's gonna. I mean, playing in snow. You've never really played in snow,
Yeah,
hombre. And they're used to playing in snow. So, but now it's like, okay, Mexico, like you already had your your sad moments. Now it's up to you to come back from that, and they're gonna come back from it. I mean, but now it's up to them. Like tampoco que no caigan como lo que pasó en el 2013 en 2009 que apenas la hicieron. Now they need to come out where, okay, don't get too comfortable because you're gonna get in the situation where you're gonna go to repechaje and wait for US to win so you can go to the World Cup.
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps this is the time for self-reflection. And there's actually a couple of things I wanted to share with you guys. Like today I found this post, and I usually don't share posts like this where it's like on Facebook or on Instagram with like a few bullet points, but this one really caught my attention. And it was about uncomfortable truths we all need to accept. And I think that Mexico needs to accept some of these truths. And just this can apply to anyone. And one of them is you have to be able to admit when you're being the toxic one. Blame is great for your ego. Responsibility is great for your failure. So that's one thing that Mexico can look at this like, all right, we got to take responsibility for this failure, but it doesn't have to define you. Because what I think is, to this next point, a most important realization in life is that you're already enough. The realization won't make you lose your ambition. It'll help you pursue the right things for the right reasons. So Mexico, in a way, has to really find their voice again, who they are again. Because we're not in last place. We're not going to be out of the World Cup. But you have to kind of find who you are again, like after 2 resounding losses and after losing to USA 3 times in a year.
Yeah. But I mean, after that, before that, we won how many games in a row?
Yeah.
So it's just the balance. I mean, I feel like Mexico needed these losses so they can bounce back.
Yeah.
And they can get out of that little like, llegan y ya están.
And maybe it's time for some players to kind of rotate out, like not necessarily be titular or having that guaranteed position. Maybe it's time to kind of give some of the new blood a little bit of a chance.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's one thing that, like, USA dealt with that. Like, USA didn't make it to a World Cup because they lost to, was it Trinidad and Tobago? Like, that they hit rock bottom. Like,
we could have helped them out, but we chose to lose against Honduras.
Hey, they wanted to do the 2-0 chant. Like, hey, but I also gone to the point where, like, and I had, like, this last week when I was in New York with my dad, I was like, even my dad, like, being born in Mexico and, like, because, like us, like, we grew up here, but it's like, like, I grew up watching Mexico, so I grew up hating Landon Donovan. I grew up Casey Keller, like Kobe Jones, all of these players I just grew up disliking, right?
Yeah.
But it's also like, now I think we're at a point, and I could even say for myself.
Sorry.
I can even say for myself.
No, drink that one, but I just wanted one, like whatever you got.
The White Claw.
Vas. Para el Pepe. Para ti, güey.
No me dejan.
The point is that we all get a refill.
Yeah, I was like, let's all get a refill.
Yeah. But I was saying, like, even my dad was like, I don't think we should be opposed. I'll personally say this for me. I don't hate United States like I used to.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to be able to work for the World Cup qualifiers against Jamaica here in at Q2. And yeah, I wasn't cheering every USA goal, but I wasn't like, oh, like I can't stand these guys, right? And I think a lot of USA fans, like, they dislike Mexico. And I was just like on Twitter yesterday, and people would just come at Mexico and they're pulling for Canada and this and that.
Yeah.
I completely understand if they feel that way. But for me, like, I lived my entire life here, so it's like, okay, like, I enjoy watching Pulisic. I think Gio Reyna is not just because he's Claudio's son. I love watching Gio Reyna play. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to meet him during one of the matches here. And, like, it's a great guy. And I'm like, man, like, this, like, I wish you the best, whether it's Dortmund or the United States. Mm. And so I think I'm personally, me, and even having the conversation with my dad, it opened my eyes that it's no longer let's hate on USA, let's not wish them the best. If they play each other, yes, I'm cheering for Mexico, and I don't want USA to do anything.
Of course.
But if USA's playing Jamaica, why should I not want USA to win? You know, and I'm open for discussion. Maybe because if you would ask me 15 years ago, I would have been like, oh, like no, Jamaica's better kill them or whatever. You know.
Nah,
but
it's funny because like for me, as a recipient, people are like, "You're not a resident. You're not a citizen. Why are you cheering for this?" Like, I've been here for 20-something years. I'm going to cheer for the place that gave me so much. Yes, there's a lot of stuff that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
But I'm here. Like, I'm literally like, the stadium is a block away from where we at right now. And they're probably having a party. And I heard the music and we didn't get invited.
I know.
Unless you have the badge and we can go in.
Hey.
¿Qué hacemos? But the one thing is, it's and a lot of people give me shit because, for me, it was like, okay, Mexico plays, of course, Mexico. But now, as I grew, I'm here. I'm part of the U.S. I grew up here. I have to appreciate it. It takes some time because it's different. I mean, the way people talk about soccer here is a lot different than how I grew up. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's soccer, dude. Like, enjoy the moment of, like, whenever they were playing Qatar here and the women played against Nigeria. We're blessed to be in a place where you can walk from your job to the stadium and watch a game.
World class.
I wore a shirt with the USA flag for those games because it's like I'm lucky enough to be able to, it's like saying like, oh, you lived in Austin for less than a year, you can't cheer for Austin FC. Like,
I used to be a Dynamo fan when I lived in Houston.
It goes back to identity and what you were saying, I'm super passionate and I'm willing to debate, whatever it is. And I have those tough arguments and those heated arguments with some of my USA friends and some, Barcelona fans and America. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, like we're friends, we're homies, ahí muere.
We speak the same language.
It's all about like respect. I'm not a fan of people that, like say Real Madrid win the Tres Ligas. Great. I learned to respect Ronaldo because of that. But I'm not a Real Madrid fan, but that doesn't mean I can't respect the player, what he did, like in the field. But also, like for me as the Real Madrid fans, that like every single chance they get to bring someone down because of the Tres Ligas, es como que, güey, no mames, apenas puedes correr una milla y ya te quieres sacar la ¿cómo se llama? El pan dulce del día.
Yeah. The thing is that, and I think it goes back to also to like Mexican national team fans.
Yeah.
If let's say like you've been to a game, it gets pretty bad sometimes. Like people, I think they see that and they're like, oh, todos son like they start fights and they don't like losing and they're bad losers and everything. And I think they generalize and they're like, oh, like that's how every Mexican fan is. And unfortunately, it's not that way. But I understand how some people can see it that way, and it does give a bad look. But just because 2 out of the 10 people are this way doesn't mean everyone is that way.
Dude, I've gone to the games where we played Panama in la Copa de Oro in Houston. Dude, all the Mexican fans were throwing beer. And even the Mexican players like, hey, cálmate. Even El Vasco, you see him like try to calm people down after he kicked the player.
Yeah.
But it's just like, nos gana la emoción.
Yeah.
Nos gana el barrio.
And I do think we do have that on top of like we're more passionate and this game matters to us a lot more than
the loss. We take it 100%. A lot harder than like any other team.
Yeah, they can. The USA fans, they could have lost that game, and they're like, all right, on to the next one. And
they could.
I think it matters to us a little bit more, and I
for sure.
That's
I would say this 2-0 result. If it would have happened 3, 4, 5 years ago, it would have ruined my weekend. But now, as I'm 30 years old, I'm married, and I've found to kind of a way to detach myself from the fandom of it and just appreciate the game a little bit more. Now I kind of look at the other side of the coin and I see USA winning 2-0 and after coming back from a World Cup cycle that they were not a part of, and I'm like, good for them.
Now here's the one
Good for
thing,
them.
like the U.S. needed to win like against Mexico
They needed to
on
do it,
Cincinnati
for sure.
because another loss at home, like
Yeah.
what happened with in 2016.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the players will be buried because even Alexis Lalas was like, these tattooed millionaires are making all this money, but they can't go to the World Cup.
Yeah.
And you know how much bad it could have been for the U.S. like as a soccer,
Well, look, if Mexico and Canada would have tied, USA would have been in third place, which is where we're sitting, and no one would have been like, "Oh, USA's doing horrible" after just being
They
in
would have
Mexico.
been like, we're still there.
Yeah, and so, like,
Yeah.
I the whole thing with Memo saying "man in the mirror," I think, and whatever sport or career you're in, if you're on top of the mountain, the target's on your back.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think Mexico has gone that had the target in their back for the longest, and now that we are being surpassed by USA. Like, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. Like, I think competition
want
is good.
that.
Like,
I've been wanting competition like this forever in our side.
Who was the one that gave the codazo to the striker in the 2002 World Cup?
Rafa Marquez.
Rafa
Rafa Marquez to
Donovan.
no, at McBride.
McBride,
he
there we
gave
go.
him
Like,
that.
I need those. I need the Donovan. Like, I need that blood, sweat, and tear games.
Because that makes Mexico better.
Exactly.
Because the thing is, like, the Mexican players, they get so comfortable. So comfortable. Like, Cordova is one of my favorite players right now, but es muy confortista. A comparación de Edson Álvarez, a comparación de Jiménez y Diego Lainez, Córdoba como que, nah, estoy chido.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And
nah,
he
dude,
had a good Olympics. He's just like, right now,
he's
riding
like
the
very
wave.
mellow.
Riding the
But
wave.
nah, like, I honestly, this was a good wake-up call for the Mexican player.
Yeah. I agree.
If you
And-
guys haven't looked up that poem, "The Man in the Glass," it fits perfect to everything we're talking about. I'm just gonna read the first four
Dale.
bars. I think about it as bars.
Ah,
It's,
chingatelo todo, no hay pedo.
The stanzas. I remember
stanzas,
taking
bro.
that in class.
So the Man in the Glass, Peter Dale Winbrow Sr., he wrote this shit. All right, when you get what you want in your struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. So that's like the first four bars, and it kind of ends. Yeah, it does. I mean, it kind of goes with everything we're talking about,
it
dude.
does.
And the last four sentences of this poem. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass.
Now, I have a question for you guys. How many times you felt like you were in a place where, nah, estoy chido, but then you realize, like, nah, esta parte de estar chido, it's, you're messing yourself up for being in that spot? Or do you guys wake up like, man, I'm not half full, I need to be full again?
Yeah. For me personally, like, I want to be pushed, and this is something having conversations with my girlfriend, like, I'm like, hey, like, for us to, like, for me at least, like, my needs are like, I want you to be able to push me, and I want you to be okay with me pushing you, because that just, like, leads to growth, individual growth, but also together, right? Like, and so I think that there are times where, I'm sleeping in, or like, just like, you're in that zone where it's like, I am comfortable and I have to snap out of it. And I think I am pretty good about snapping out about it, but it's like, I do better when, whether it's my girlfriend or anyone who's around me who's like pushing me. I think the same thing with friends. Like, if your friends aren't pushing you to be better, I do think that, that for me personally, it is an issue. So like, I want to push you to be better in a healthy way, and I want you all to push me to be healthy, like push me to grow and to be like in a healthy way as well.
Now, you know who pushes me to get stronger? That dude right there. I see his post like at 4 a.m. That's time I'm probably going to sleep.
No. I see those too, and that's some like little things that inspire you. You're like,
and I'm
man,
like, I gotta get my kettlebell and swing it around.
Yeah,
Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, I used to be like a super morning bird. Now I've kind of changed my schedule, but I get inspiration from you guys too, man. Like all the time, competing and just seeing what you guys are accomplishing. I'm always kind of trying to push myself. But to your question, Richie, I think I had a moment in my life in 2015, 2016, where I started to date Madison. And I was working, doing my thing here in Austin, that professional life. But there was a piece of me missing. For me, it was like getting that degree that I had reached up to like 99% of it and just never accomplished it. And she's always been good at like calling me out on my bullshit and like saying, hey, ponte las pilas, come on, get your shit together. do whatever you're putting off, fucking do it. And like, I fucking did it, and it basically changed my whole life. Like I switched companies. I started working at different projects and working at a higher professional level. And it's gotten us many things, it's gotten us like material things, but it's gotten us to that point of trust and encouragement. And it kind of like helped us bond and truly grow our love and eventually our marriage. So I appreciate her and everything she's done in my life. And hopefully I've done something similar for her.
Yeah, it's my wife too, dude. Like same. Me trae el tiro.
And I have to show you, like, there's this book also that me and my girlfriend recently bought. That's also really good with just like daily inspirational, like it's a lot of self-reflection. And again, going back, Chicharito was the one that I saw him kind of post about it, and I started looking into it, told my girlfriend about it, and she actually brought the book. And so we've been cycling a little bit these last few weeks, but usually trying to read a page. And so the guy's name on Instagram, it's Young Pueblo. And so he's just has these like motivational like little passages and that you could read about. And it's also a lot about like self-reflection. And it's also like, I mean, back to man in the mirror, it's like looking yourself in the mirror, and like we all have our struggles, but how can we grow rather than just throw it in the back and be like, all right, let me forget about it? How can you really take the struggles and learn and grow, right?
Yeah, like personally for me, dude, I grew up in a struggle, right? And every time I wake up, I want to put my mindset in that struggle. Yeah. Like I don't ever want to feel like, oh, we have this podcast, we have, a photography business, I have my degree, I don't need to do anything. Like, no, dude. So before, like, I'm in the podcast, and then I had a side job where you can deliver Chinese food. And it could be comfortable to making that easy money, getting that hourly thing. But now it's like doing photography. It's something that like pushes me to hustle and network. And sometimes you have to do a shoot for free or give another discount or whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's like I want to be putting myself in the struggle part, because then I can grow. Because I don't want to be in a place where I feel comfortable, where I'm just going to sit back and relax. Like, I just can't,
Definitely.
dude.
Yeah, getting out of that zone of comfort, pushing yourself to the uncomfortable moments, kind of just where you're more susceptible for growth and challenge.
Yeah.
That's the way to go, man. And that's what I hope for. Kind of going back to soccer, like these Mexican players can get there, because moving on to the Canada game, I started watching that knowing that this was going to be a difficult game for Mexico. It almost felt like I was watching like a Game of Thrones episode, because it was fucking snowing. It was north of the wall. Yeah. Like, to me, I was
there was like 20,000 the first like 10 minutes.
To me, like Mexico was like north of the wall. These were wildlings, fucking frozen zombies. Like, the Canadians came out.
Every chance they took, took it, dude.
They came out with like a different intensity. Yeah. Kind of similar to USA in that physicality, that speed, that they're not going to have as much possession, but they're going to be dangerous when they have it. And when they scored the first goal, to me, it was kind of like a fluke. But looking back at it, Memo Ochoa had this video that was kind of like, he basically served it on a platter. It looks easy, like you say,
but it's a hard part to
Memo
get.
should have just punted it, but
In the snow, it's
bounced,
hard, dude.
It's ice.
It's ice.
It's synthetic.
Yeah.
It's a synthetic field.
Yeah.
So many factors come into play. But at the same time, like, you've had 2 goals against that AFCON with USA. Now this first goal against Canada, you start to kind of like, it starts to chip doubt into the Memo Ochoa.
Yeah.
Like, is he still there? Is he still? Should we give someone else a chance?
Yeah.
It's difficult.
But I think if it was one thing that like, oh, we're creating chances, we're our strikers are, because I think in the past we've had times. It was a while back when like our strikers just couldn't, when Landin was
Landin.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Like
that was at
Olympiados.
2000s. Yeah, 2008.
Like that was just
Con
like,
Vicente Fernandez, Vicente Sanchez,
yeah.
Fernandez, and
that's just
Landin.
like, okay, the strikers are struggling, right?
Santiago Fernandez.
Yeah. So, with his long hair, he's in America, right?
Yeah.
Dude, I don't think.
And he scored like 3 goals in the playoff like beforehand.
Oh, people, I don't know if you made it out of that stadium.
Yeah, I don't think he did, dude.
But back to my point is like every line, whether it's starting from the back to the defenders, to the mid, to the strike, like everyone just looked flat. Like it didn't look like there wasn't. And I don't know. It sucks too. Oh, the weather. Oh, like this. Like like we had our center back suspended for the USA game, or we're trying the 5 in the back or anything. But it just there wasn't really any highs. Even with Edson Alvarez play like fine. It was like he didn't like it wasn't like, oh, like
enough.
He was a standout. Corona had his moments against USA, but it wasn't like, man, like he he was consistent. So I think just looking at the whole cuadro, like it was just overall it was below average, and
They were contained.
I
think props to that USA team, man.
Well, that's the one
That
thing
USA
is
team
like
was incredible.
like you said, contained. And that containment comes with collectiveness.
yeah,
When you contain good players like como ilosos como Corona y Chico y Lozano, what I noticed is they pushed them to the side as much as they could so they won't connect with Raúl Jiménez.
Right.
So they made Raúl Jiménez go more, like bajarte más para agarrar una pelota, because they contain Lozano and Tecatito just on the sides, dude.
Yeah. I think what I personally think that Mexico wanted, and they could have had it, is that Mexico knew that they would have 1 or 2 chances and they put it away, game's over.
Yeah.
Which was the one that Chucky had, that Zach Steffen had a great save.
And then
the Corona whiffed it.
Yeah.
But
From
you
the
put
Balón de Chucky.
Yeah,
Pero,
you put one of those.
the goalie kept coming out.
No,
too,
that was a great save
Yeah.
from Chucky, and you had Yedlin chasing him, which it goes back to athleticism. Like
Props
he
to Yedlin, man.
chased
He's
it.
like 30-something years old, competing with a Lozano in his prime.
And it's
Exactly.
24, 25.
It's crazy.
And I think that once Mexico didn't get that early goal, I think it became a challenge, and it was just a matter of time. And I don't think USA played great, but you do see like that they had chemistry, that technically they had an idea, and that they were willing to win the game, yes or yes. And Mexico was just like, oh, if we get that goal, if we do this,
Ya le
maybe,
hicimos.
like we'll be happy with this. And so I it was tough to watch. I remember after the second goal, I turned my TV off, and I was like,
You did get the sense when Pulisic was coming in.
I saw that Pulisic coming in, and like, I already see the goal coming.
Like,
Because Pulisic was just like, he's a very visual person. I don't know if you can see it when he plays for Chelsea, but on the bench, he was having fun and everything, but he was already looking where he's going to come in and score. And whenever he decided to come in and score, it was just like getting Mexico when they struggle en la pelota parada, or in a cross.
question. I know this kind of going off topic. Who's the best U.S. soccer player for you guys
Right now?
just in the history?
In history? Donovan, dude. Donovan changed everything. Yeah, I think
without a doubt.
I think Donovan changed the way U.S. thought about soccer.
Yeah, agreed. Do you think Pulisic can? So that is a great, because I think I've talked to my dad, someone who doesn't watch the Premier League, someone who doesn't know who Pulisic is. He doesn't he watched Pulisic and he was like, average.
Yeah.
Donovan, I think Donovan did more damage against Mexico for Mexicans to know who he is. So,
Yeah.
so the reason I asked that is because I do think Donovan is the most like the best who's done the most damage to Mexico. But I think skillful.
Yeah.
I think Dempsey is
Dempsey.
Dempsey.
that pelea.
Dempsey is definitely more. He has a lot of skill, probably even more than Donovan. But the amount of damage that Donovan has inflicted in the international level, what he's meant to the U.S. during critical moments, those are things that don't necessarily show up in the stat sheets. You're not going to see like he scored so many X amount of goals or he's won champions, but he came through in important moments.
Yeah.
And I think this past game, Pulisic scoring against Mexico in Cincinnati, that first game opener that kind of led him to the win, is the beginning of his career towards that bar.
Yeah.
So if he can continue that, he can reach that Donovan status, but he has to do it on multiple levels. Like
He has to.
qualifiers.
I think he has to do it in the World Cup.
He has to do it in the Confederations Cup,
Yeah.
the Gold Cup. He has to do it in multiple.
And I think like that's what Pulisic is gonna have on his stain is the fact that they didn't go to the World Cup. Him being in it last year,
But he was young.
but he was young.
Yeah. But I do.
But
yeah,
I mean, Donovan was young too. Whenever like that, like the 2002 World Cup when they beat Mexico.
Yeah,
he was like of the same age.
I think Donovan has that mindset of like.
Es
He'll-
que ese
like,
era
he's
barrio. Like that guy was
he-
barrio, dude.
I mean,
He was, dude.
He grew up in Southern California. He
grew
had a
up
little
in-
Mexican.
Well,
in him.
he probably studied like every single movement and what he can say to.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like whenever he got to playing against Mexico, he already knew what to say to the Mexican players and how to react.
And the fact that I'm telling you, that's one things that if you see both of them, Dempsey and Donovan, like they grew up playing with Mexican players. Dempsey in Texas here, and then Donovan in California, where they're like, I mean, they can speak Spanish because they grew up playing.
Yeah,
with some of the
that's what
best-
Donovan like knows Spanish.
Yeah,
But I want to say, man, Pulisic, he has another thing, like a different mentality. And a lot of the times, like, let's say for a Mexican, we take it as creído. We take it as like, oh, man.
Se
ese
cree,
vato
se
ya está
cree.
ahí. Yeah. But you need that to beat Mexico. Like, you need to, like, walk in, not even shake the players' hands and act like, get in their mind. Like, it's usually, soccer, sometimes with professionals, they shake hands and they say hi to each other. But Pulisic doesn't do that on purpose because he already knows, like, I'm going to get to them thinking I'm better than them.
but yeah, I think he actually has like, I'm not gonna say hate towards Mexico, but he doesn't like Mexico, and he wants to beat them every time.
But it's what you need to have. That's what
Yeah,
That's exactly what Donovan had that pushed him to that greatness to always show up
Yeah.
during those matches.
when
And
it
you
mattered.
need that. You need that.
And then I think, like, later on, he's going to say, after, similar like Donovan, when he's like already
Still
almost
playing
done with
Mexico.
soccer, he's going to be like, man, Mexico was the team that made me better for my national
He
team.
might even go play for America like later in his career.
Hey, if he's 33 and he still got it, why not?
No. I think the U.S.
The U.S. part. It's okay. We talk about Dempsey having skill, Donovan being, who Donovan is, Pulisic wanting to get there. Michael Bradley was not in this game. And initially, I felt like every time Michael Bradley was in the game against Mexico, the U.S. kind of struggled.
Yeah,
And him not being there was good for the team, or was something that, like, it's just coincidence?
I think it's one of those things that I think USA fans were sick of him. I think there was like, all right, your time is done. I mean, even though people are like, oh, these last few years he struggled. I remember him he chipping, I think it might have been Otra in the Azteca, where
2017, I
yeah,
think.
he had he had his times where he was holding it down. I mean, Beckerman, like these guys in the center mid, but I think he played maybe a year or two over his prime. So I mean, luckily for the USA, they were able to do so. Going back to what you were saying, is like, I think Mexico might have to take a minute and reflect on, all right, which of these players like are no longer like looking for the next cycle.
Right.
Because yes, if we qualify, we qualify, but why are,
The World Cup,
yeah,
that's
the
when
World
it
Cup, then
matters.
if we're, one and done, it's like, Well, same thing. Why even, if we finish first, like, it's not gonna change up in the World Cup. And so I think it might take like Michael Bradley. I think USA did a great job of reflecting and being like, okay, your time, Josie Altidore, it's your time to go. Now bring in the new generation. I think Mexico might have to be going through that.
Now, which players from Mexico should for sure rethink their priorities in the national team?
Do you want to tackle this one first?
Oh man, and maybe this comes from I don't want to say bias, but I think Ochoa has done a great job as a Mexican goalkeeper, but we should look towards something else. Yeah. Because I know goalies have a long lifespan.
Yeah.
But we should look towards something else to kind of give someone else experience. And same thing goes with the midfield. You have Hector Herrera. He plays in Atletico Madrid. He plays at a super high level, but he's not going to play for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You got to give other people chances there. You got Eslo and Alvarez kind of stepping up into that same similar position, which is good. But who else? Who else do you have? Like, I don't know.
I think starting back with the goalkeeper, I think, because if you think about the last few years, like Ochoa, Talavera, Corona, like, I don't think one of them is head and shoulders over any of the other ones, right?
They're kind of similar in level.
Similar.
They have different specialties.
Yeah. And so I just think, like, okay, you do have, I don't think this last 2 games you maybe struggle with the goalkeeper, but I think there are some youth, some young goalkeepers that may be able to step in and, like, can do the same job, or maybe, like, at least, like, they're, like, younger so you could develop them. And I think I think more of, like, I see this starting 11, and it's not necessarily a player that I'm like, oh, like, it's his time's done. But I think of, like, the depth, right? So I think of, like, you look at the cambios, or, like, you think about Guardado, like, he's still killing it in Betis, but after this World Cup, are you really going to use him, right? Mm-hmm. And so I do think of these other players, and I'm not saying, oh, this is the answer, this is the answer. I don't know why Lainez didn't come exactly. Maybe you might be able to say.
I think he was still recovering from an injury.
Okay. But I do want to push for players like that, a little bit younger, that, maybe Cordoba, I don't know if I'm, love his game. He did good in the Olímpicos. I would give him a chance, but I almost bring it back to that, like, I don't know if I am okay with him right now. Mm-hmm. I do understand that it might be late to change it up, but I do understand that Mexican, hey, after 1 or 2 games, you can be fired. But, yeah, I don't think there's a player from the starting 11 that I'm like, oh, like, let's kick him out. But I do think that depth-wise, they do have to start thinking about, some younger, more talented players.
So here's one thing I was asking that, because there's 4 players in Mexico right now that for sure Tata, like, he's shunned them, and he needs to rethink that about not bringing them back. Is Arteaga, he's on the left side.
Yeah.
I think we have Jorge Sanchez on the right and Arteaga on the left. Can do some good. Or Gallardo. But Gallardo, I feel like Gallardo's not really good at, marcando. Yeah. He's more of a up top.
He's struggling.
But he hasn't been doing both. And that's another, I don't mean to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
Do you remember, like, a few years ago when we had Layun and Pablo Aguilar, when we're going up and down the field? Now we don't have that from either of our carrileros. So.
And that's another thing, is like Paulo Aguilar, consistente, Callado, consistente,
so
Layun.
We had Aguilar and
Layun.
And before that, we had
Salcido and Osorio. Yeah.
So Mexico for like 8 years had like someone that was like up and down. And
yeah.
Now we don't have that, man.
Now Chaka is just...
Chaka it's inconsistent.
Yeah.
Jorge Sanchez, I think Jorge Sanchez needs to go to Europe to get that level that he needs to get. Porque ya en América su tiempo ya está... He's going to be there starting, but he needs to get it to Europe. Yeah. Not like that. That's what made Diego Lainez better. And I feel like this is where Mexican players that get good, they need to get out, even if they struggle in Ukraine. I don't care. Just get out of Mexico, because Mexico is doing you more harm than good.
Yeah.
You're making that money, but you're not growing. I think Arteaga needs to come back, because he has something different than the other players on, because he's playing in Belgium.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in a different position, in a different scenario, where he's constantly having to, maybe go up higher, and eventually he's gonna go play in the Champions League, but maybe not at like Real Madrid, Barcelona,
Yeah.
but in a lower level team, but he can get some playing time. Edson Alvarez, I think he's good right there. Hector Herrera, he needs a challenge, and I think that could be Cordoba Herrera, but Cordoba needs to get out of Mexico too.
Yeah.
I love Cordoba, but he needs to get out of America.
Yeah.
He's doing himself more harm than anything staying there, and he needs to be challenged. And then Romo, and I feel like a lot of these players are good, but they just need to get out, dude.
But I don't love, and I don't know if I haven't, like I said, I haven't watched the Mexican League as much, but I don't know. I think the games I did watch him with Cruz Azul, he played a different position than what Tata's asking for him now. And so I don't know if that's doing him more harm than good. But one thing I want to touch about Lainez is I think we're still thinking like, oh, he's a young kid. He still needs, like entrada de cambio, and he still needs, like, I think
he needs to be stepping up.
I think it's time. I don't yes, I understand he's younger than the guys who are now, but I think he's also at a time where it's like, hey, throw him to the fire, like
make him burn. If he has to burn, he burns.
Yeah, and I think a few years ago he was getting there, but now I think he's just kind of been stuck in the mud for the last.
He's fizzled out a little bit.
Yeah, and so I think now it's, hey, throw him in there. He's the most talented Mexican young player that we have, and so it's like, hey, he's either gonna, like, I know sometimes los cuidamos so they don't break, but it's like, hey, we need someone like that, a little bit different.
We need a spark.
Yeah.
We need someone to spark up that.
And even I didn't see Jonah Dos Santos in this list. I mean, no, don't get me wrong, he's not the best, but he's consistent when he comes and plays for Mexican team, and we didn't see him. And I feel like Mexico needed someone like him in there.
I think he was dealing with injuries. That's why he didn't come. Him and there was another player that I saw an article that they were being replaced because of injury. Mm-hmm. And so Jonathan, he's been dealing with just like, so one thing I learned about him is that the way he runs isn't good for his limbs, you would say, right?
Because he runs like two side to side sometimes.
Yeah, and so they were saying, because I remember one time they were saying, he's like, are you good for 90 minutes? He's like, I'm building up to that, but it's because like he started seeing a specialist who like is basically showing him how to run because something about his legs being, so he struggles with injuries because of the way he runs, which is kind of,
it's wild.
It's wild to think about, but
that's another thing that, I mean, now we're touching things that, he's taking care of. How many players in Mexico don't think of that?
They just go on the field and just, hey, we do my best or whatever.
Because I feel like unless you're like in Europe and someone told you like otherwise, like Herrera, he's been pretty consistent in his career for a while. Because they probably told him, okay, you need to move like this so you can remain sane, like not sane, but like sano, heal. I mean, in good shape. And he's probably following whatever they tell him. I mean,
and with El Cholo, like, I do this straight discipline only.
Yeah.
So.
But
it kind of goes back to the infrastructure, like in different countries. Like, so I know for sure, like Sonny kind of spoke on it, on the way that the U.S. kind of runs their systems here. From a very young age, these players are getting the best fitness coaches, the best nutrition, getting massages, they're getting kind of coddled. Mm-hmm. So in a way, it makes them kind of soft, but at the same time, it helps them physically to maintain themselves in a healthy condition to compete and the longevity of their career. I don't know.
I mean, I was able to, so Sonny was able to send me to like Mérida, and Mérida at this point,
they were Venados.
Yeah, Venados. They were in I did like preseason with them for 2 weeks, and their facility, like D1 school, high schools here have better facilities than like, and they're in an ascenso, and so you start thinking about like, like, as technical, like those players are were or are better than here, but you're having a 15-year-old having a better facility or better trainers or giving massages or a better weight room. than some of these pro athletes in Mexico. And so it's like,
It's tough. It's tough to compare apples to apples like that. And it just goes to show you that the infrastructure of the U.S. and probably Canada as well, the respect that they have for soccer and their organizations, and like the type of investment that they give into it, because they want to see it get better. Whereas a country like Mexico has the interests and like so much money that gets that moves around, but doesn't necessarily go to the facilities. So it's like you have a country that in Mexico that respects and loves football so much, but the people in charge don't share that love and respect for the development. Whereas in the U.S. it's the opposite. The country as a whole disrespects soccer.
Yeah.
Still to this day, even this U.S.-Mexico match, it was on ESPN2.
There was a big, because there was a football game, like
It was like
Cincinnati
a
or
college
something.
football game. This is like the biggest game of the year for USA.
For the US, yeah.
And it's not even on like ABC or even ESPN normal. Like it's on. So it's funny. You look at both sides of the coin. In the U.S., like the society disrespects soccer, but the infrastructure really, really takes care of it. And you can see it in the men's leagues, in the national teams, and even more probably in the women's league.
We might get some more answers before the year's over.
Hopefully.
There's a surprise that hopefully doesn't get canceled, but it's going to be huge. You might like it too.
Hey, that sounds
so cryptic. Richie's so cryptic.
Now we were thinking about that, and I'm like, I've been thinking about like what we're talking about, and hopefully that guest that we have at the end of the year doesn't bail out. Please don't. If not, we're gonna not call you out, but we're gonna be sad. But a lot of the things that I wanted to talk and really touch points is just like that aspect of what's going on, like physically, like why are we not where we should be, knowing soccer for so long as, like following soccer, especially for the Mexican players. Yeah. Like I think we hopefully get that answer or from someone that works with them on a regular basis.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that'd be awesome to see. But then again, like we should also be happy for like USA to be able to, develop more soccer players, because I mean, the way I see it, like even with, whether it's here in Austin or different cities around the country, like Verde Leaders, like I would love if Verde Leaders could one day play in the pros, but every kid, and I know like Sonny's a great example, is like he's helping develop from 3, 4, 5 years of age. And it's like every kid should be able to play soccer because, we have a large population that should be able to, like we should be competing with those larger countries. Exactly. And so I think every kid should get an opportunity to play soccer. And I think there's a lot of talent that goes missing because of, financial situations or because they can't go to practice because of location or whatever it is. And so, building every community should have soccer, and whether it's here or in Mexico, like soccer in North America should just grow. And I mean, excited for the World Cup to come over here in a few years, and also just be able to show that in this side of the world, soccer is just as important.
Here's one thing I was thinking of a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, okay, like American players, no matter what race, they work in their physical aspect. They're super disciplined about that. I mean, if we look at Instagram, how many people in America have six-pack? How many people in America like work out and have this crazy Instagram followers? And even the soccer players, I mean, they look pretty fit. They look stronger. I feel like if we want to grow, and we're not gonna play Libertadores for a while until they approve it, right? That's long gone. We have Canada and Mexico. Mexico should look at trying to get in that same physicality as the American player is getting. By that, bringing in American players to the Mexican league. Because they're going to show you a completely different mindset of how to train and play. Maybe sometimes the talent won't be as good as, we have it in Mexico, but the discipline of working out, of eating right, how much benefit we can get from that.
But well, yeah, that's a great point. But if you think about it, you try to tell Mexico, like, look, all right, you raced this year that USA beat Mexico, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the last 20 years, who has done more?
Mexico.
Mexico.
Sure. Yeah.
So you're trying to tell, this is a new idea. This is new for everyone. So you're trying to tell why, if you talk to a un coordinador, like, change your ways, why? It's worked for the last 30 years.
But the thing is, like, a lot of the trainers in Mexico are implementing trainings that they do in America back to Mexico.
And I think recently it's changed.
Yeah.
Because you have that physical trainer he's been with Herrera. So I don't, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I hear talking about.
Oh, so it's, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, he's with Tigres now, right?
His name starts with a G and the last name with a B.
Yeah. So he's one of the only ones that I've seen or that I've, came across that I'm like, okay, like Henry Martinez. He worked with Henry Martinez in Cholos in America, and now like Henry Martinez is actually
Henry Martin, señor, por favor.
Henry Martin. Sorry. I actually met Henry Martin when he was in Mérida.
Yeah.
Super skinny,
with Sonny.
Super skinny guy, like, but everyone loved him, and he was like grinder. And to see him like now be with like balling out in America is like crazy because like I think that physically he got better.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like, and that's one example of many that can be so.
Because like the talent is there. I mean, we know that. I mean, we've seen people that play very good, pero luego nos falta la parte física y mental de disciplina. And I think if we bring players that have that, it's like te juntas con cuervos y eres cuervo.
Yeah.
Cuervos. But not like what I want to get is if we can get the Mexican players to get in a different mentality physically, man, I'm pretty sure we're gonna be not mesmerizing about Alfonso Davies getting super fit and winning the Champions League in the pandemic. We're gonna be like, you know what, we're there. We might, we might not, but physically we're there.
Yeah, that's a great point.
All right, guys. I think that's a good segue into just that mentality aspect, that health aspect. Like we said earlier in the podcast, we're kind of celebrating Men's Health Awareness Month. That kind of goes from mental to physical health. I'm trying to do my part by participating in Movember, growing my stash. It's getting there. I think it grew in this whole talk. I just feel like it grew a little bit more body, a little bit more.
I can
body.
see a little darker.
So for those of you that don't know, Men's Health Awareness Month in the month of Movember, it's to raise awareness on prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and just to the fact that mental health is something that we don't get to speak about quite often. So if you know someone in your life, or if you're someone that needs to talk about something, please do reach out. A little bit of stats out there: 3 out of every 4 suicides in the world are men. So that just goes to speak to, we have something that we need to look for help, look for guidance, and just have someone to talk to, like these guys, like Pepe, like Richie. So please let everyone know about Movember, and I'll be sharing my little credential and social awareness link on the podcast for everyone. I don't know if you guys have anything to say on that.
Yeah, man. Regarding that aspect, I do have a couple of people that they can reach out to. One of my boys, he actually runs his name is Rene Garcia. He runs the Men Do Therapy podcast. He's super huge on men's mental health. I'll share the link as well. I'll share his stuff. I think this part of here of, like mental health for man, it's super important, and we do got to take advantage of every resource out there. I mean, even if, like how you were saying earlier about mindfulness, if we can get to that aspect of being mindful for ourselves, that's going to be a huge benefit.
Yeah, and I think it just starts with having these conversations, right? And so whether it's on a podcast or just with friends, it's like being able to normalize having these conversations about different health issues that we're having. And so we always tell our kids, and, for the listeners who have like kids or anything like that, we might not be the experts, but it's like there's so many resources that out there that we can go ahead and connect them to. So I think just being able to have the conversation and, one thing leads to another, and be able to help where we can, basically.
But yeah, anything else want to add?
Pepe, if you can just sign us off, give us a little bit of the plug to the orgs you're a part of, and any social medias you want to share.
Yeah, so we have our social medias are, we have on Twitter, we have for ATX Foundation, we have an Instagram, and we also have a Facebook. And then for Verde Leaders, we have an Instagram page. And so you can go to austinfc.com basically and find the community tab and 4ATX Foundation. And then under 4ATX Foundation, there's different volunteer opportunities, whether it's with Verde Leaders or just different initiatives that we have going on. But yeah, you can go ahead and find us on there. And, like I said to you guys or anyone who's listening, like the program isn't the program without volunteers. So whenever anyone has an opportunity to come out, they're more than invited to go ahead and join and be part of something great here.
For sure. I can personally attest that volunteering with Verde Leaders has been one of the most important and inspirational things that I've done in Austin. So please, reach out to this guy, reach out to Verde Leaders, and see how you can be a part of that. You're gonna get so much out of it, but more importantly, you're gonna give so much back to the community. So shout out to Verde Leaders and the 4ATX Foundation.
Yeah, and also shout out to Kaylin and Jordan.
Yes.
Yeah. Kaylin and Jordan, this is an open invitation. If you hear this after more than 2 hours and you want to come by and have a talk,
we would love to have you all.
Open mic for you guys. And man, I appreciate you coming, Pepe. Coque has been very passionate about having you here and having you share about everything from 4ATX Foundation and what you guys are doing. And wish you guys the best, man. I know sometimes it can be a little challenging, but I see the reward in your eyes, dude. Like from the moment you talk about it, like it's a glare that keep it going, man. Keep it going. And if there's anything we can do, we'll do it from our side. And Coque, dude, appreciate you coming and pulling this together, man.
Of course, dude. I love it. I love being a part of this. And we ask that you continue to encourage your family and friends to listen to Otra Por Favor. Please share otraporfavor.com, Instagram at Otra Por Favor. And you can find us on Spotify and anywhere you get your podcasts. So give us a listen, where we have very, very special guests like Pepe. And hopefully you join us in another episode in the future, and we continue to share the things that you're doing and your organization is doing as well.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I know we touched on a lot, but
Dude,
we still
that's the whole point.
We still have to talk. We still have to talk Messi, Ronaldo, but
Messi, Ronaldo.
Yeah, we kind of
that's for the next one.
Glossed over that. Well,
No.
The reason I didn't want to touch that is because I feel like David is an integral part of that conversation.
Yeah, we wanted to wait for the beat.
Yeah. So definitely next time you come to the podcast, we're going to touch.
Actually, we'll have the beat next to you, so you guys can go at it.
Okay.
And Coque and I love Messi. I respect Ronaldo.
We'll be more like moderators.
We'll be more like,
okay.
dale, güey.
Yeah.
Pégale.
No, but I just want, again, thank you, and I love what you guys are doing here, and also just it's a pleasure to just have this conversation with you guys and get to know more about you guys as well, and cheers to everything that this whole conversation last
Y
few
raza
hours.
que se arme, arriba Austin FC, arriba Los Verdes, La Murga y el Anthem. We give them some love too.
Let's go.
Órale.
Yeah.